Chair Pfaff, you may begin.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Welcome to the April 8th, 2024 City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all in attendance today, please note that this Planning Commission meeting is being held in person and using the Zoom webinar format. This meeting is also being streamed live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website. Please note that we are not accepting remote public comment during the commission meetings. We ask that the public either attend the meetings in person to comment or send an email to publiccomment@burlingame.org. Staff will be monitoring emails submitted during the meeting, which will be read at the appropriate time. The length of the emailed comment should be commensurate with the 3 minutes customarily allowed for verbal comments. Agenda item 2 is roll call. The record should note that 5 members of the commission are present this evening. Commissioners, Commissioners Say and Warren are absent. Agenda item 3, request for remote participation, AB 2249. We do have a request from Commissioner Say to participate remotely. And so with your recommendation, we can let Commissioner Say participate. Yes, all good?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
We'll just want to,
Sorry?
if we can have Commissioner Say just make the request on her own and she can give a very brief description as to why.
Okay, Commissioner Say.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I'd like to request a remote participation with AB 2449 this evening due to a medical condition.
Okay, thank you very much and welcome.
Yep. And as you noted earlier, there was no objection by any member of the commission, so the request is approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Agenda item 4, approval of the minutes. We have minutes to approve this evening from the March 24th, 2024 regular Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments, changes, or discussion regarding the minutes?
I'll move to approve the amendment.
I'll second that motion.
All right, great. Motion to approve by Commissioner Lowenthal, seconded by Commissioner Camerado. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
and Chair Pfaff.
Aye. Agenda item 5, approval of the agenda. Staff, are there any changes to our agenda?
No, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, and do we have any recusals? Okay, there are no recusals. All right, agenda item 6, public comment, non-agenda. Members of the public may speak about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future Planning Commission agenda may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act, the state local agency open meeting law, prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. Do we have any members of the public attending in person this evening who wish to speak on any item that is not on our agenda? Okay, seeing none, do we have any public comment emails?
There are no public comment emails for items that are not, that are not on the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 7, study items. There are no study items for review. Agenda item 8, consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine. They're acted on simultaneously unless separate discussion and/or action is requested by the applicant, a member of the public, or commissioner prior to the time the commission votes on a motion to adopt. This evening, we have one item on the consent calendar. It's item 8A, 1541, 15-1565 Adrian / 960 David Road. Would any member of the public or planning commission like to pull this item for discussion? Okay, I don't see any commissioners. Are there any members of the public who would like to pull this item?
And there are no emails for this item.
Okay, thank you. All right, then I'm looking for a motion by commission to approve this consent item.
I make a motion that we approve the consent calendar. I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Schmidt, seconded by Commissioner Lowenthal. May I have a roll call? Yes, roll call vote.
Yep. Yes, Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
and Chair Pfaff.
Aye. Any action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $784, which includes noticing costs. Right, on to the next. Item 9A. 16, these are regular action items, 1602 Forest View Avenue. If you are the applicant and are attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. Oh, yes, you're here. Great. Hi. If possible, we ask for you. Oh, never mind that part. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Nope. Okay, and we don't have any recusals. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, the proposed project was initially submitted as a building permit on February 22nd, 2022 for a first and second floor addition to an existing single unit dwelling. At the time of the review, the proposed project was exempt from design review because the second floor addition was less than 100 square feet. A building permit was issued on July 25th, 2023. In December of 2023, the applicant submitted a revision to the existing building permit, included enlarging the proposed second floor addition to 114 square feet. Therefore, it was no longer exempt from design review. The applicant provided a letter of explanation dated March 15th, 2024 to further detail the revisions of their building permit. The letter is included with your staff report. The project now proposed would include a 147 square foot first floor addition and a 114 square foot second floor addition at the rear of the house. The applicant is also proposing to enclose the existing second floor balcony at the front of the house. There would not be any changes to the number of bedrooms, so there would not be a requirement to add any parking. In summary, the applicant is requesting design review for a first and second story addition to an existing single unit dwelling. The applicant is in attendance if there are questions, but first I'm available if there are questions of staff.
So are there any questions of staff? I just have one. I think it's a simple one. Could you please show the rendering one more time? I know that we're not supposed to use renderings. We're supposed to use the drawings, but I was just wondering, on the house, it did not look this way when I drove by, but I would guess the west side of the second story, it almost looks like the roof is sort of cut back before it doesn't cover the stucco like it's plumb. It's exactly the same with the stucco, and that's not correct, right? That's not the way it really is in reality. Do you know what I mean? The second story, the roof, there's like a hip roof kind of cut on the east side where the window is, the corner. Yeah. It's not, it's just the drawing. I'm thinking it's the rendering.
I think we could defer probably to
Okay.
the applicant
Okay.
for the response to that one.
All right. Then I'll for that one. All right, then I guess that we don't have questions. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Hello, my name's Edward Calantes. I'm the property owner. My wife Julie Calantes is here as well and also a property owner.
Hi,
Hello, how are you?
fine, thank you.
Good.
So, are you going to, you're not going to say anything? That was plenty. Yeah.
Whatever you'd like. I think your observation was correct. The rendering wasn't showing the roof
Right.
going past. So I mean, that's basically everything's going to be exactly the way it was originally.
Mhm.
And when we fell into this situation by accident, we took the permit out. And when we were under construction, we saw that the rear bedroom, which just faces the street,
Mhm.
was 2 feet short of the downstairs expansion of the kitchen. So we just squared up the back of the building. And in that process, we resubmitted our drawings. And then we were told that that additional 2 feet by whatever pushed us over the 100 square feet. So that's how we ended up here today.
Appreciate you being honest. Thank you.
You know, I don't think anybody would have noticed it.
Yeah.
We went ahead and submitted it. It was a tough thing. And I was actually pretty shocked that, I thought maybe at a staff level, we could come up and, get this worked out, but they said, no, we had to go through.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Sure.
So do any of you have questions okay. I also don't have any.
Oh, I do have.
I see Commissioner Say.
Adri, I'm sorry. Yes.
Sorry, I have to remind myself how to raise my hand. Excuse me. I just had a quick question. On the east elevation, the proposed east elevation, it appears that the second story is cantilevered over the garage. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think there's just some drafting omissions. I'm not seeing the details on the front elevation that reflects that. And when I went by as well, I don't know if I recalled a cantilever, but I certainly don't see the knee brace, corbel details. As you know, there's just some disparity between the front elevation and the proposed east elevation,
Are you referring,
right-hand elevation.
are you referring to the rendering?
No, I'm talking about the elevations, not the rendering.
Okay.
Let's see. Is the east elevation the right-hand side elevation?
You're facing, sure, if you're facing it, I think that's correct.
Okay. Yeah, there's just something, the details above the garage on your proposed front elevation do not match up with what's being shown on the east elevation. So just wanted some clarification on that or some drafting corrections.
So if you go back to the previous one, so on the front, yeah, where the arrow is right there. So that is,
Sorry, I can't see the screen.
oh,
How do I see the screen?
what page is that? A21, bottom left.
Mm-hmm.
If you can
Yes.
see the existing above where it was
Yes.
the trellis extension of a deck
Mm-hmm.
and bedroom would stop there. We squared it off to enclose that decking area, right? That's correct. There's no corbel. Is it a corbel there now? Because we're under construction, there's nothing there right now. But I believe that extension is accurate.
Okay, the cantilever may be accurate, but there's some detailing, some architectural detailing that's in that proposed east elevation, just below the cantilever. Can you see where you have a corbel detail and some?
Yes, I see that. Yes,
Yeah.
that has not been put in yet, right?
Yeah, and that's not showing on your proposed front elevation,
Okay, let's see where the front elevation.
which is your south elevation.
Yeah, you're correct. I don't see it there. I'm not sure we're going to put anything there, but we could.
Well, I think even the front elevation doesn't even have the line horizontally indicating the cantilever of the second story. So I'm just calling out that there's just a little confusion of what you're intending
I see.
on between the two sides.
I understand. Yeah.
So you're not sure if you're going to put the corbel in is,
The corbel is a corner piece of wood piece, right? I know we're putting some inside the house, I mean, we certainly could add that in there if you'd like. I wasn't sure right at this point if we're going to do that. We hired an interior decorator, so we're painting the house white. So even if we do put it in there, it will be painted white. And then the window itself, aluminum, like a light blue aluminum siding on it. So those are only going to be the two colors in front of the house. And we could put that in without a problem.
Could I also ask the, on the rendering, it does not reflect a cantilever over the garage? And were you saying that there is or is not a cantilever over the garage?
There is a cantilever over the garage.
So the massing on the rendering is not reflecting that. It's showing that the upstairs and the garage are
Right.
on the
Yeah,
same plane.
she was incorrect with that. Yes. It was a struggle to get this, to tell you the truth. So yes, you're correct. The rendering does not show that the way it's drawn. Yeah, the way it's drawn is correct.
The way it's drawn, where,
And
on the drawings?
And the front elevation is correct. That's what's happening. Yeah.
But I don't think it's correct because I don't see I don't see a cantilever line. There's no line extending all the way across.
Must be missing line, but if you go to the 821, you'll see
Yeah.
that there is a cantilever, and that is correct.
Okay. So I think there just might be some drafting corrections here, or just updating. And then could I also ask where you have this added portico, if you will, kind of entryway into your front porch?
Yes.
Does that bit of roof just to the right of it touch the this portal?
No, we're going to build it in front of it.
The portal's going to be built in front of the roof,
Yes.
including the eave.
What is the eave?
The eave is the extent
Oh,
of the front.
okay. So that eave, I believe so, yes. We haven't built that yet, but yes, that's the plan.
Okay, again, in the rendering, it's showing that this portal is, I think, in line with the front of the house, maybe not, I can't tell. Maybe I have to go back to the plans.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the extent of my questions right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Audrey's very good at catching little details like that. So thank you, Audrey.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any? Okay. So are there any members of the public who have comments about this project? Or any emails?
No emails.
Okay. So then I'm gonna close thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna close the public hearing. Colleagues.
I have a question for staff.
Mhm.
Why would this have been exempt?
So if the addition is less than 100 square feet, then it's exempt. But once it went over 100 square feet, that would be the second story addition. First story addition.
I understand, but the whole front of the home is changing.
That itself would not change that itself would not trigger the design review. It's the extension, the expansion of, so somebody could change the facade of their home without expanding it, and that would not be subject to design review. It's only when you expand and create what would be considered a second story addition, that's what triggers it.
Okay.
So if you extend your first floor, though, it doesn't. Even if,
Under most circumstances, no. There are a few circumstances where first floor addition would trigger design review, but in most instances, it does not.
Sandy, think burial A. Yeah. So it does happen. I mean, it's a good thing because people don't have to go through the rigmarole, but on the other side, it's, anyway. Okay, so can I look for?
so
Yeah.
I'll say, I was on the same page as Commissioner Say, but I'd like the plans to be representative of what's actually going on, and artist, the renditions to be a little bit more accurate as per the plans. It would help me see things a little bit more clearly. So I would just ask if you could be a little more, come back this next time with the correct details on your plans.
So,
So
Mhm.
I don't actually have issues with the extra square footage on the back and the reason why we got here and the whole thing. So that doesn't bother me. It's the fact that nothing about the front is coordinated at the moment. And so I'm concerned that there's a cantilever, which I don't know if there's structural drawings for that in the building permit set, but I just feel like the lack of coordination here, and I'm afraid of what's going to happen as this finishes. But this was not our purview in the beginning either. So my whole interest is in the front, not the back, which is what they're here for. So.
I don't disagree with that either. I mean, I don't have any issue with the second story addition.
so where do we go?
So how do we move through this? Because it's a little bit,
So this is on the action calendar. So the options are to either take action on it or continue it. If you feel the items regarding the particulars on the drawings merit a continuance, that is an option. If you feel these are things that could be worked out through the building permit review and are more drafting details, then certainly it's prerogative of the commission to take an action on the application.
To me, given what they came here for, I think we should take action on the second story addition. I would hope that building might take another look and confirm that the front of this house is going to work. Because then that, if we fool around with this could go on forever. And that's not the intent of what I think we wanted to do for this person.
Commissioner Say, you had a comment?
Thank you. Yeah, I raised my hand too. I'll lower it. So here's where I think it's confusing. I too do not have a problem with the additional square footage on the second story, but because this is now being brought to us as a design review project due to the size of the addition, we have to look at it from that perspective. And if some of the architectural detailing and styling and just even the composition of the front isn't pulled together cleanly, then we may be facing an issue later where the house is built and it doesn't match the approved design. And so I think that there certainly should be another round to give the applicant the opportunity to look at some of the things we were questioning and just think through, maybe with a contractor or designer, how all of these elements will come together, and then bring back to us updated drawings, front elevations, side elevations, and a more applicable rendering that's going to reflect that design. And that way, everything is just cohesive. It's still, one package, despite the fact that we're all in generally in approval of the second story addition or expansion.
So are you, so that would be almost like a continuance of what we're doing now? So do you want to make a motion?
So I move that we bring this project back again on action and address the items that I just noted, the drafting items, as well as clarifying some of the architectural detailing and intentions of the composition of the front of the house.
I can second that. Then can I have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camerado,
aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
and Chair Fa.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Just a note, it's not appealable.
Oh, this is not appealable. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Or soon. Okay, now we are item 9B, 1410 Carlos Avenue. If you are the applicant and are attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If If possible, we may ask you also turn on your video at that time. Were any of the commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Nope, don't see any. Don't think we have any commissioners recusing. Let the record note all commissioners present have visited the site. Can we hear the staff report?
Yes, thank you. This is an application for design for a first and second story addition to an existing single unit dwelling at 1410 Carlos Avenue, zoned R1. The subject property is an existing one-story single unit dwelling with a detached garage. The applicant is proposing a first floor addition of 36 square feet and a new 1,036 square foot second floor addition. Staff would note that the existing attic area is not accessible and currently only accessible through a pull-down ladder. That square footage is currently not counted towards the total for the house. The proposed project would have a floor area of 3,035 square feet, and the maximum allowed on this property would be 3,307 square feet. With this application, the number of bedrooms would increase to 4, requiring 2 parking spaces, one of which must be covered. The existing detached garage provides 1 covered parking space, and 1 uncovered parking space is provided in the driveway. There's no work proposed to be done to the detached garage. This project was before the Planning Commission for design review study on February 12th of this year. The commission had some comments and suggestions and voted to place this back on action when the plans were revised. The applicant has submitted revised plans in a response letter dated March 24th, 2024, and is attached to your staff report for reference. Staff has provided for you suggested findings for design review along with 11 recommended conditions of approval. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the project designer is here this evening as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we have any questions of staff? I'm here to look at you, Audrey, not block you with my papers. No questions? Okay. All right, then I'm going to open the public hearing. The applicant, please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add about your project.
Good evening. My name is Joe Sable from Arrow 11 Design. I wanted to thank you guys again for all your work and review on our project. I just wanted to say thanks again for all your great comments the last time we met. I know that we reviewed them all with the owners and took them all to heart and tried to do as much as we could to meet all those changes, which I think were really, really good ideas. And we implemented a majority of those with, I think the main thing that we were excited about doing was lowering the front porch roof down, adding the flanking windows to really break up the front entry sequence and make that more of a human scale. I think that was a great comment. Some of the other things we did is kind of accentuate the offset of the color of the body of the house with some of the trim details. We added some more details with the vents and some of the articulation with the gutters and downspouts. We tried to break apart some of the window bundles to make them a little bit more separate, so they kind of be a little more cohesive with that. The owners, after some consideration, wanted to remove the metal roof and just go with a regular kind of a monolithic asphalt shingle shake. And I know from an aesthetic point of view, the owners were really kind of wedded to the no grids on the windows. They thought that was an important aesthetic choice that they wanted to kind of hold on to, and they thought it was important for their overall sense of the design for the house for them. I think, yeah, and I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, and look forward to any comments you might have for me. Thank you.
Versus questions.
Yes, please.
Oh, well, I have a couple, but I wanted to ask my colleagues.
Yes, please.
Sure, I'll go.
Mhm.
I got questions. Thank you for the changes, going in the right direction. The area I'm most interested in is the entry.
Okay.
I'm seeing the lever of the roof coming out. Looked at that structurally and how you're gonna line up posts and beams to hold that up.
So we've kind of I've had a series of preliminary conversations kind of with the engineer. We've done this on another project. It's actually kind of a metal L bracket that goes into the wall structure to hold up that cantilever portion.
Okay,
So yeah, we're gonna take advantage of the wall thickness with basically an L bracket that will come out and support that.
okay.
Yeah.
So is that top, so underneath the roof, but there's the projection, is that gonna get wider because it needs to sit on the posts that are in the wall? Or is it gonna align with the recess of the doorway?
The,
In the drawings, it aligns with the recess, looks better,
that's what I'm thinking, yes.
but I'm not seeing how that's gonna structurally work out.
You know, I've done another project where it becomes basically the engineer either has the angle comes from the vertically up and horizontally, or it actually comes from the top and L's in. So it's a metal fabricated piece that gets embedded into the wall. It's like a tube structure. So
Okay.
that's kind of what we're thinking, just to keep it more open.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you haven't entertained having any columns or anything further out on the porch?
No. We looked at a series of, one of the comments from the commission members was kind of the engaged columns, but not anything separate. We kind of looked at that, and the engaged columns with the windows, the engaged columns without the flanking windows. I think the homeowners really liked the simplicity of the windows rather than the columns and window scale. I got too busy, I think. But
That helps that elevation out.
yeah.
Um,
I think really lowering it down, really, I think that was a good help, just to lower it down. I think the scale comment was very, very insightful.
I just, it just feels like that roof piece is floating. It's kind of got some gravity going.
We'll get it to work.
And so, thank you for walking me through what
Absolutely.
does on the engineering, because oftentimes, no, we haven't thought about it. And it's like, well, then it isn't going to get built that way.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely.
Because it comes back as a change.
Correct.
So as long as you're feeling confident about that, because I don't want to see it vary a lot because all of a sudden structurally it's different.
I agree with that comment. Yeah, absolutely.
But I would have done columns,
Fair enough.
floats. But anyway, good enough.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'll let Audrey go for Audrey.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm so talkative this
No.
evening.
I hope
Uh,
you're feeling well.
Thank you. So just a, sorry, quick question. And I can't really tell between the floor plan and the front elevation and the rendering, if you step up at the front door.
Yes, you
Into the
step up.
house?
That's correct.
So you're at the landing and then you step up to the finished floor of the inside of the house.
Yes, that's correct. You step into the recess, and that's more or less at the level. That's correct.
Sorry, so did you say that the landing and the interior, at the front door threshold and the landing are generally at the same level, or are they actually off by one step?
If you don't mind, if I could ask to pull it up, I don't want to talk sideways here unless I see the picture. That would be helpful. Thank you so much. The front.
Yeah, your front elevation, I think, is showing 2 steps up from the grade to your front door. And your rendering shows those 2 steps, but then it looks like there's another step going up into the house.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're talking about the actual step. I'll get it here in a second. I think you're right. I just want to look at it visually to respond. Yes, you are correct. Sorry, I misspoke. There's a kind of 3 risers. You go up a step, you're on the landing, and then you step up into the house. You're correct.
Okay, is there any
Thank you.
reason you wouldn't want to design it so that you can come up to the landing and be able to be, essentially at finished floor level for smoother entry through the front door?
I think we're definitely open to that, but I think part of it was I was just kind of hyper aware of not trying to scale up the front too much with the bulk of the landing there. I just want to kind of keep it more slim. For that's not a technical term, more slim, but I'm going to use it. But just I don't want the bulk to get too high. That was kind of the scope, but those are the current thoughts on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Audrey, was
Thank
that it for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I just have if you could just leave that up still, that the rendering with the front showing. So I had very similar comments to Commissioner Schmidt. So I understand you not wanting the columns because you don't, your client is feeling you don't want it to feel constrained there. I understand that, but there is something about that floating look that's not, it is it's not holding its weight. Like it's just, what is it doing there? So I was wondering if you mentioned these L brackets, but I'm guessing that's something engineering wise you're using. You talked about L bracket thing. Well, is there any way you can make part of that actually show, even if it's a modern piece, so it's got, so it looks as if that triangle is actually sitting on something, because I think that, love that you brought it down like 500% better. This is so way better to me.
Okay.
But I feel like it needs to, why is it there? So it needs to be sitting on something, even if it's fairly paired, spar kind of, doesn't have to be what I think what you're thinking, but that was what my thought. The other is, there's something, and maybe your client really wants this particular look, but when I look at this, and it's been greatly improved by the windows, because of the door, and the front is very symmetrical, the whole thing's symmetrical, but the house is not symmetrical. So it almost is like a chapel. The doors and something more retail-like, or I don't know, something very, to me, chapel-like. And I was wondering if they had considered, unless they want that look, they had considered, because the rest of the house is asymmetrical, the front door not being that type, like a retail, but being one that is a 2/3 one, like a big door with the glass with a vitrine on one side and the big door on the other, just kind of so it pulled back into the rest of the house. So it sort of attaches itself back to the asymmetrical part. It's not a deal killer, but I was thinking if it were mine, I would look at it at least, just because it would feel like maybe pulling it back. It's modern as well. There's a lot of them done that are modern, but maybe less symmetrical.
Less symmetrical. So you're talking about like either a single solid door or a door with a side light, like 1/3, 2/3, or maybe a 1-foot strip and a 3-foot door or something like that, or 4-foot door.
Whatever that is, yeah, is your
Okay.
business, but
Okay.
just to get it, and as I said, you don't have to do it, but
Sure.
I'm just thinking there's that front piece is perfectly symmetrical, but the rest of the house is not a symmetrical house at all. And we all appreciate, I'm sure, the reuse of their structure. It's super that you're using all that material and everything. It's great. Love that.
Sure.
So it's just, so it relate back to what is there, which is not symmetrical. It has a lot of interest in the other area. That's
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the comment. If I may follow up with that really quick, would you consider like the next step? Would there be other things that would kind of go along with that asymmetricalness that you're thinking, or is it just the door?
To me, I think the door, in my opinion, but I'm,
Yeah, no, I was just curious. I just wanted to kind of
Our-
feel you out on that.
but yeah, it's just, that's what I mainly see. I love the windows and everything. Everything else is coming together except for the weight.
Got it.
That issue for me, but it was just a thought that
Yeah, absolutely.
see a lot of the doors that are kind of door and then a little one. It just, I mean, you might sketch it up and see if they like it. I don't, that's all.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So anyone else?
Yeah, could you walk me through the attic vent ideas here? It looks like they did one, the highest ridge, And then we added one at that floating, whatever we want to call that, the front, I assume the one in the front is purely aesthetic, not functional.
That's correct. That's correct. It's just more to match. The idea was to try and break up the plane of that wall of the gable with kind of an articulation to break up the wall massing there
Okay.
and to carry the same aesthetic that we have higher as an actual vent there.
Okay, and I just wanted to clarify, because on the existing drawing, you show a rectangular attic vent, but they're actually very beautiful cathedral attic vents that are currently there. And I just want to make sure the new ones are, you intend them to be square or rectangular?
Kind of in the same vein, yeah, more a skinny rectangle. That's correct.
I know, but the existing house has like these beautiful cathedral vents. And the existing drawing is shown as just rectangles. So I just wanted to make sure that was the intention.
That is the intention. Yes, we would update that to what it's on the plan.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner.
So I was on the same path as Commissioner Chair Pfaff. So my thought was, question I had is the landing that's in front of that door, that concrete landing, those stairs, does it go all the way across or is it really just to the front door? Because the rendition is, the rendering is suggesting that it's just 2 small steps up to the house.
So that's a great question. I think the landing goes kind of the width of the just opening and a little bit on the edge, a little bit beyond that, engages that. And then that's kind of the deep part of the landing. And then there's the secondary step down that wraps around that on 3 sides.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you can, and maybe it would look weird, but I feel like miss here, and I'm not wondering if you can do more of a, take that bottom step a little farther across. I don't look odd, but if you just follow me here for a second.
Sure, absolutely.
If you take that a little bit farther across, then you kind of open up the front door as Chair Pfaff has suggested, taking that front door and doing a nice, beautiful glass door with 2 side lights. And then it just makes that distance be a little bit more grand if it fits. And perhaps then you don't really need those 2 side windows on either side. I'm still struggling with the front. I think you've done an exceptional job with the rest, but this front piece right here is just a little bothersome.
Can I clarify what you're just saying as the other commission member? Because you were talking about asymmetrical, you're talking about symmetrical. You're talking about, I'm not, there's no jest there. I'm just saying, but you're talking about 2 side lights and like 2 side lights and a solid door, correct?
No,
No,
like 2 side lights and a glass door and
glass door too. Okay, glass.
like a glass door in the middle with 2 side lights.
Got it.
1 side light. Doesn't really matter. I don't.
Okay. No, that's fair.
Is get this to be a little bit more grand, and this feels it feels kind of tight, and it feels kind of like it's not going to be as inviting. And the characteristic of it is just, this piece is just bothersome to me. And I think it is because it's so symmetric, and it could be that you just have this peak in the middle that I feel like is free floating. That is also a little bit just, I want to put something here, and I want it to kind of come down to the ground and hold it there. So I'm not sure how you do that, or if you can do that, or, but I do feel like this little piece right here needs more work.
It's not much. You're close.
Very close.
Yeah.
I'm interested in all you guys, what you're saying, for sure.
Just time to get a pencil out and to try different, I mean, I love doing.
I drew it out for myself, like,
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm
Home and like mine, but we're not supposed to do that.
I think you're right. It's super close and
Yeah.
I'm just I want to hear more because to me, again, I'll talk to my clients, but to your point, manipulating the pattern of the opening that's very straightforward. And, I'm sure my clients would be open to that for sure. And I think that's kind of what you're saying as well is change the pattern, maybe widen the landing to make it feel physically more generous at the bottom. I think my client would be very open to that as well, just in general.
What do you guys think?
Yeah,
You
but
guys thought back
we the only ones
on
who,
fact.
I
Can I ask one more clarification question?
Yes, please.
oh,
Um,
sorry.
so do you
Mute on
intend,
yourselves.
oh, I'm sorry, do I have permission to speak?
We lost you. We can't see you visually.
Your face and I'm.
We can hear you very clearly, though.
Oh, that's strange. I can see myself.
There.
There you go.
Am I there? Am I back?
Yes, you're there.
Yes.
Okay. So just a clarification, do you
Yes, please.
intend, hello?
Yes.
Oh, do you intend the pediment over the front door to look like the rendering or like your front elevation? Because they're not the same. One's a triangle and the other one stops short. And I think even the eave overhang runs deeper and wider on the rendering compared to the front elevation.
Unfortunately, I have to look at what we could pull up to look at that to answer your question, unfortunately. I know the rendering exaggerates the overhang a little bit more, just in general, because of the perspectival view.
Yeah,
Um,
but it's more about the shape of the pediment above the front door.
So when you say pediment, are you talking about the triangular
Mhm.
portion?
Mm-hmm. So see how it's not a triangle on your front elevation, but it's a true triangle on your rendering?
You're talking about the portion that comes down a little bit lower on the bottom of the triangle. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I think the drawing is more consistent than the perspective on that technical. I think that was with the drawing, we were trying to make it balance the lower eaves of the front gable roof there. So to me, I would say that the differential is to be in favor of the elevation, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah,
very close, but I
I
see
have
your
also-
point. That's a good point.
I've also kind of sketched out, what I think it should look like. And I feel like if you followed your rendering more and widened the gable
Okay.
and extend the pediment, if you will, so that it intersects with the gable, then it gives you some space to work with something that you can ground this doorway on the left and the right somehow.
I think that's a great point. I think, again, I think the delta between the two is exactly what you said, is if I was to say the bottom of the pediment is extended to intersect with the underside of the soffit, I think, again, I'd have to speak with my owners, but I think they would be very, very, very open to that idea as well.
Okay, and then continuing on that area,
Yes,
maybe
please.
a consideration instead of another decorative attic vent, which is non-functioning, maybe a change of material or change of gable end, something to call a little bit more interest to that front entrance instead of replicating the attic vent above. Just an
You're
idea,
suggesting another material in that.
whether it's
sediment area?
siding
I see.
or some other type of, treatment on the gable end.
Okay. Thank you for that comment.
Um,
Yeah, I think the design is greatly improved. I like the windows. I think that was a great. I'm kind of like, especially with the way that the frames for the windows have been added to on the first story. It now looking at the primary facade, it's like a series of pairs of openings, right? There's a flow that carries over to that entryway that I like a lot better. For sure.
Great.
I'm personally, I'm okay on the doors, but I feel like you've gotten a lot of feedback to go with on that one if you so choose. I think that I also think there is definitely a little bit of room for tweaking on that lower portion. You could consider I know some people have been mentioning like a more inviting or grand entry if you curved the outer corners facing the ones that are facing the door in the recess, so that instead of it being right angles coming to the recess, kind of curved inwards. That could open that up a little bit, and that design language might also making the overhang feel a little bit less overhanging. If it was curved backwards, it might make it a little bit more intentional. I'm not sure. I also think the brackets idea was a good idea, whether that's a traditional ornamental bracket or it's the actual like a modern bracket or the one that's actually holding it up. I think those are all good ideas. And also I did notice that that part of the house in isolation definitely looks not exactly like a house. I wasn't exactly sure what to call it, but I think a chapel works good. I think that if it was by itself, it'd be a little bit concerning, but it's part of a larger itself definitely reads as residential. And I think that as it's presented right now, it's okay if it has a mass that's a little bit non-traditional. I think it's going to be a kind of an interesting entrance that's different from most of the things in the neighborhood, but not so different that it causes an issue. So I think that's most of all that. Yeah. So generally, and also I no longer have issues with no divided lights or simulated divided. I think that when those added and with the frames, I think it might look better, in fact, without any divided lights. So I think that was a good.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Corrado?
I'm just looking also at the floor plans, wondering if you could even have your closet is right there as you walk in to the right.
Correct.
So allowing yourself more of putting the closet in over to the right or to the left, more to the right in that right corner. Yes. Maybe that will open up this. Don't have to particularly have just play with the floor plan a little bit. Maybe that'll open up this front space for you a little bit to be a little more, allow you to get more creative and a different idea with that front door inside.
So just to clarify what you're saying, so maybe I understand. You're talking about physically widening the doorway aperture itself. So when I look at it, there'll be less wall between the two windows that are flanking,
Well,
in theory.
if
And the
you-
windows would get smaller, maybe a narrow or two kind of thing.
You may not even need those. If you have a nice door size, that's even a, beautiful glass door with two side lights, you may not need to have those two windows right there, because that
I see.
the grandness that you need. I'm just making some.
Yeah, no, this is great. I want to understand what you're saying. I walk away with it. Thank you.
Closet in to the right, right? Have this kind of dead space there instead of putting it right against the door. I don't know, just play with it, see what you come up with. But I want to make this more grounded and I want to make it more inviting and less pitchy right there. Make it a little bit more, I don't know. I don't know if it's the triangle in that front or if it's the door. But I just feel like there's something there that's not quite right. So I'm just trying to give you some ideas.
Sure. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that too. I just want to make sure I understood. Thank you.
Are we done with questions? So then, or were we on comments already? Okay, now we're on comments, I guess.
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, of course. Is there anyone thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to ask questions or comment on this item or any emails?
No emails.
All right, then with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Colleagues.
I feel like we've given a fair amount of feedback. The hard part is we're on an action item at this point,
Hmm.
but it doesn't feel like it's resolved. So I'm not sure I see that moving it forward puts us in a better spot. It just puts us forward with an unresolved entry. So I would propose that we continue this and allow for the homeowner and the architect to finish that conversation, and then we need to take action on it.
Do you want to make a motion?
Is there anybody else who has
Anyone else?
an opinion on that?
Opinion?
I would just say I agree. The only unresolved part was I have a little bit of a disagreement with Commissioner Shores, but I'm more than willing to go with the majority is in this neighborhood, every house has grids. And this house originally had grids. And I understand they've done improvements to the windows, but this isn't a super modern house. And so I just feel like, are we creating not a sore thumb, but something that's going to stick out more than maybe a blending That's all. That's all I'm curious about. It's a subjective thing to me. I could let it go either way. It's just, I did walk this street and there's grids on every single house, including this existing house.
I don't have an issue with the windows. I feel like I like actually looking out my windows without grids. So I don't have a problem with the windows. I have a problem with the front door.
I-
That triangle. For some reason, that's just, to me, just feels like it's just out of place. And so I don't think I can move forward in approving this project with that front door. Other than that, I'm okay with everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I think all of us kind of have some issues with the front entryway. I just wanted to add on to the window section because there was some comments last time, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page so they can keep the grids moving forward or keep it without the grids moving forward, but need some work on the front.
I totally understand what you're saying about consistency in the neighborhood. I could see this totally also with grids, but I think if the front is somehow resolved in a, because it can be a statement in the front, I think it would be, then you wouldn't see so much that it was, the windows didn't have the grids. I think could really help define the whole thing if the front is really, just incredible. And I think you can do that. So anyway.
I have one more. There's a door and window store on Broadway that has a really cool front door on their building. So maybe just walk down there and see what you think and kind of try to think of what you could do with some of the cool stuff that they have. I'm not saying you have to use them. I'm just suggesting just looking at what they have actually that they use for their front door, which I love, but it might give you some ideas and you can kind of do something that is more in your style, but that's the idea that I'm thinking of.
Okay, so then I'm going to make the motion that we're going to continue and give them an opportunity to come back with a finished entry.
And just to clarify, is the continue, bring it back on regular action or on consent?
Action.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call vote, please. Do we do roll call? Yeah.
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Aye.
Commissioner Shores.
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Hi.
Vice Chair Lowenthal.
Aye.
And Chair Pfaff.
Aye. And thank you very much.
Not appealed.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yep, and this is not appealable.
Oh, and this is not appealable. Next to item 9C, 34 Dwight Road. If you are the applicant and are attending the meeting via Zoom, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? I don't think we have any recusals on this item. Let the record note all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, an application for design review for a first and second story addition to an existing two-story single unit dwelling and attached garage at 34 Dwight Road was approved by the Planning Commission on July 11th of 2022. A building permit was approved on July 31st of 2023, but has not yet been issued. The property owners have proposed to make some modifications to their approved plans and submitted an FYI application, which was reviewed by the Planning Commission on March 25th. The commission called this FYI up for further review and requested that this project be reviewed as a design review amendment at a public hearing. The owners are requesting exterior revisions to the approved plans. No revisions are proposed to the approved floor plans and site landscaping. The applicant's explanation letter is included with the staff report. Proposed changes include changes to the windows, the addition of decorative vents to the gables, change to the garage door design, and various changes to trims. Construction has not yet begun, so the applicant is asking for these changes prior to construction. The applicant is available for questions, but first I'm available for questions.
Okay, are there any questions of staff? No? Okay, then I'm going to open the public hearing with the applicant come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like us to know about your project.
My name is Peter Gorski, and my wife, Susan Nguyen, actually sits next to me.
Great. So let's see, how do we do this? We did get the note from, is it Jesse?
That's
First-
correct. That's
Yeah,
our
that's
architect.
right. So we got the letter of the explanation. So, is Jesse here? Or are we just going to be speaking with you?
Jesse should be online.
Okay. It's coming.
By the way, you can speak to me as well.
All right,
I'm very
Uh,
friendly.
great. So, are there any questions then of the applicant?
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Hi.
Thank you. I'm just trying to figure out how to get on here, but hello, commissioners. Jesse Gersa, GCD Incorporated. If I could just interrupt here for a moment, Susan and Peter, and we'd like to thank you again for introducing these changes for the FYI. We understand that we had the FYI go through our previous submission and that it was pulled by one of the planning commissioners. And not sure what the reasoning was, but actually we're here. Any questions? Design project that the commissioners may have had.
So in all honesty, it was Chris Haran who pulled the item, and he's not with us this evening. So I'm going to take my best shot at guessing at what he wanted to know about. Kind of curious about the change in the front elevation, because frankly, I like the old elevation better. So help me understand why these changes are making it better.
Well, I think at the time of when we designed this at the previous design, we were kind of looking at trying to create a kind of Mediterranean rated residence in some way or another. But as we kind of were looking at the design, it just seemed really eclectic in the way that we were trying to develop the whole facade. So my clients are very kind of contemporary in design, and they like more modern. So in doing so, naturally, as you know, the plans are ready to be pulled and built, so that we thought that they really wanted the contemporary look. So we kind of revised the exterior to have a more simpler, a more cohesive design that was more more their style of architecture, and that was more contemporary. So with doing so, we naturally, I like to be on top of things, and I don't let it come back after the fact. And I figured let's get this back in front of the planning commission to make sure that this reorganization of the exterior was approvable, which in our eyes is very nice and clean. And I think the overall look is much nicer. And I have to say that I live more or less kind of behind the Gorskis, and so I have to look at the house. So that's one of my driving focuses of redesigning it, so that it was more just a better design altogether for everyone, especially my clients.
I do have a question on page A7. It's your proposed, so I see the change, the simplification of grids, but then I get to page A.7 and your north elevation. I mean, you have grids on everything. It's a simplified grid, so it's it's a third up from the bottom or whatever the pattern is. But then I get to that side and there are no grids at all. So I didn't know if that was a mistake or like an oversight, or you really intended that side of the house to have no grid.
Well, that I could, divulge to Peter. Peter, your idea.
Absolutely. That's a great question, Commissioner. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and the attention to detail. So a couple of things to notice about that side. Number one thing is important to notice about the side is that it's not visible from the front of the street. The second piece that's actually important to notice is that as our neighbors are looking at the side of the house, it was important for us to create a one line, cohesive line that draws all the windows, that you can draw through all the bottoms of the windows and not to break up that more. We felt that creating the grids on that side, it would create a busy facade for our neighbors so they can enjoy themselves and their backyards. We consulted with few neighbors and they felt it was appropriate, and it would in fact actually help them to calm that facade with running many grids down by reducing a couple of grids.
So just so I understand, but you are proposing just the one grid, so it's not like busy like it was, like you might have thought it was before. Too much action. It really is quite a simple grid that you've chosen for the majority of the house, except for that one side. So, yeah, that definitely caught my attention. But we're at the okay. I appreciate you answering. That was
an excellent question, though. I appreciate it because we spend a lot of time discussing it and with Jesse and ourselves, and we really wanted to create like a simple aesthetic for our neighbors so they don't feel that the house is imposing into the backyards. That was really the primary reason.
okay. Thank you. And I think that was my main question. Do I have any other questions? Okay, then do we have anyone, the public who would like to comment?
Sorry, I had a quick question.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. When you disappear from the screen, I don't think about you.
I don't know what anyone's seeing, and hopefully no one's looking at me. But anyway, just to go back to what Jesse, you were saying about the Gorski's intention on creating a little bit more of a modern aesthetic. I can see that on the front elevation, and that front rendering actually is helpful. But the left side elevation with that kind of heavy, almost Gothic cantilever, that seems to then beg for a simpler application, something a little bit more minimalist. That seems kind of overbearing there. On that side elevation, especially with your client talking about not wanting to affect neighbors' views with grids and such. This one, painted potentially in a dark gray or a dark brown color seems to me more imposing to a neighbor than a couple of additional grids on the windows. Any thoughts there? Oops, I think you're muted, Jesse.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now it works.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know that, the conversation between the Gorskis and Bob and Kathy, who are the neighbors on the corner, that they were fine with that actual elevation being the way that it is, more just a kind of a cantilever type of bay window. Other than that, they seem to be pretty happy with that, left side facade that was going there. So yeah, I mean, that was a conversation with Bob and Kathy.
It's a good question, Commissioner. And I want to acknowledge one more thing. Your last feedback, about there used to be a window next to the entrance, and you had a question there before we dropped off. I really want to say words of appreciation to you and your comments last time. We noticed we actually removed that window because it did create like a really weird aesthetic at the bottom level. And so I really want to acknowledge that your comments was heard, and we wanted to address that
Thank you. One more question, is, the rendering reflects the front door as being at the same level as the porch overhang in front, or not essentially the entryway overhang in front of the front door. And the elevation seems to suggest that this opening is wider and taller than the front door. Which one is your intended design?
Well, you know how perspectives are. I mean, they're a little bit, out of skew with the rendering. So,
Is it
as
all beveling in? Sorry, are you intending all three sides to bevel in?
yeah, I mean, that's the idea. And, perspectively on the renderings, that would be the idea. Yeah, I see where you're saying with the front exterior 2D, we have a gap in between everything. But yeah, there definitely needs to be a space between the head of the door and the actual thing. I'll make sure that happens. And
That's-
as it veers back towards as an angle, it should be an opening that it is itself, not at a head or height. That would look horrible.
Yeah, and I think I like the detail. I mean, the rendering, it shows that the bevel detail. I think that's a
Yeah.
nice look. And
Mhm.
so you're just missing some lines there on your front elevation to reflect that bevel.
I'll throw that line in there.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. That's very thoughtful as well. And I want to say that there's a beautiful house that Jesse also designed at the corner of Dwight and Bayswater, and has a very it's exactly the same styling of the entrance as well, with the nice bevel. So we felt that we wanted to make it as consistent with that house as possible. So that yeah. Thank you for recognizing that.
Commissioner Camerata.
Hey, Jess.
Hey.
I was thinking, as I'm looking at these new renderings, would you consider doing something, the detail that you have on the back elevation? So that the detail of the top floor paneling that you do there, doing it on the side so that we can kind of keep a consistent look. Have you looked at something like that? So that way it's kind of what you have on the back is what you have on the side, and it just kind of all would, I don't know. I'm just thinking it might just all fit together a little more nicely.
And I think that's what we were talking about previously with the Gorskys and Bob and Kathy, who live on the corner. They I think that was one of the things that they discussed, that they wanted it a little more simpler, not as much
But taking what you have on the back,
Mhm.
on the,
Wait,
and doing the
vertical.
same thing, yes, and doing the same thing on the side.
Yes, that's the plan. That is actually excellent comment once again. I just want to, sorry, Jesse, for jumping in. That's exactly
But that's
exactly
not
what
what
the
we
plan is.
have here, right? I mean, that's not what we have.
I didn't see it.
I'm sure we can incorporate that if it's
I just would like you to play with it. It's not a deal breaker, but the kind of thinking if you
Oh
could
yeah,
play with it. So
yeah.
that it would
It
look
doesn't.
same as what you have in the back.
It's actually wonderful comment. Our intent
It's
was,
the
in
same.
fact, it's exactly to be the same. So I actually very much appreciate that comment. Yeah. It's actually, I don't know, it didn't make into the drawings, but it's definitely a great catch.
okay, so we can incorporate the vertical. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Can I-
Yeah,
can
it's the same pattern. Yeah. Mhm.
Can I just ask something before we go down that road too far? I'm just wondering how on the one on the back, the one that looks a little Tudor-like, how deep is that? Is that like 4 inches? Is it what is it actually?
It's 1 foot.
It's a foot.
Yeah, so it cantilevers out 1 foot.
Yeah.
And what we've done with the back of that is that we've centered it over the doors that are down below, just to give it a little more symmetry on the back of the house where the pool is. So it actually worked out much nicer than what we had previously designed.
Okay.
Excited about that.
And also, am I seeing correctly that on the rear elevation that you have made the windows, the set of windows, actually the whole thing smaller? Yes? The ones that are on the left-hand side.
Family room,
Yeah.
doors.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
They're smaller, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that part's good.
Yeah, yeah, we
We
heard
need
your
to-
feedback last time, and Jesse was very adamant also to fix that. So Jesse, thank you for keeping us honest, and so we heard your feedback there. Thank you.
Well, it just starts looking out of proportion.
Yeah.
But in the
Oh,
same,
yeah, we brought that down, yeah, and squared it back.
yeah, in the same way, I think the one in the front though now takes up more, your front window on the right side looks like it takes up more space than than the one that had the rounded, the Roman arch type. So,
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
more,
so
a little more
anyway,
temporary, but cleaner looking, I think, and less competitive with other houses in the neighborhood. I think I think it's gonna be very nice.
okay, so those we're on the questions part, right? So yes.
Just one very simple, just to confirm the yes question. So the front door on the drawing is shown to have like a gap between the top of the door and the ceiling. On the rendering, that door fills vertically the whole gap there, and it goes all the way to the ceiling. I just wanted to confirm with looking at having the chosen door be tall enough to fill that entire recess.
Yeah, I think we discussed that earlier, just in regards to that having a header above it, and then the recessed of the door entry, 45ing back in. Yeah, it definitely won't die into the door head. It'll have space in front of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that would look horrible again. We wouldn't.
Any more questions? No more questions. Okay, then I'm going to ask the public. We have any public questions, comments? Anyone?
No emails.
Okay. Audrey, do you have anything more? Okay. So I'm going to close the public hearing and looking for, well, I'm going to start on this one. In a way, this is closer to what you have now, which is pretty streamlined. And I like some things that you did on here. On other things, some things I like better than what you had before, and others I don't. I mean, that's the way it's just always going to be. But for me personally, I think you can't. And Jesse, I know you're a neighbor, so I don't mean this about you, but I don't think we should be designing things for all the neighbors. Then we'd have a house with three different, depending on how many neighbors you have, three different designs. So I think you have to be really careful. It's nice to respect as much as you can neighbors, but adding a grid or taking a grid away, I don't think that does anything to a neighbor at all. And I don't think it's busy. So whatever you choose, and I personally really liked the 3 grid, but if you choose, if you're going this direction because you think it's just much sleeker, I think you need to do that on all sides. Or to me, it looks like you didn't get around to replacing the windows on one side of your house, or you haven't gotten around to replacing the other 3 sides. So it just is the consistency, because the house is supposed to be whole, even though we're mainly seeing one side from the front. So that's my personal opinion. I think you need to be consistent all the way around. And that's my comment.
I agree with you. I personally find all the changes to be cost-saving measures, and I totally understand it as a contractor, but every single change they've made is a huge reduction in cost. And unfortunately, with that comes some looks. That's subjective, though. I really like the design the way it was before. It's fine the way it is now. I'm not going to hold it up, but I do think the reason this has happened is because it became a lot more expensive than they expect. I mean, that beautiful arched window that they originally had is very expensive. An arched doorway with a beautiful cascading entryway looks great, very expensive to build. So I get it. And the new design is not deplorable. It's just not as nice as the first one. So I'd be fine moving it forward. I think that's probably why Commissioner Haran pulled it, just because it was drastically different. And again, I agree. I don't think it's because the neighbors don't want to see windows without grids are less expensive than windows with grids. It's just, that's the way it is.
I actually like the original design better. And I think that, I think, I think what could happen with this is it's gonna go flat. Which is unfortunately what, a lot of what the existing house has now is it's flat with aluminum windows and not a whole lot of depth to the design. And so, I think that the entry is important and maybe getting the chamfered in there will help with that. But it just seems to me that everything else is kind of going flat and simple, and I don't think it's making the house look better. But I can appreciate the changes and the desire of the owner, so I don't necessarily oppose it, I just better.
Mhm. Sure.
So I look at this as if this project were to come for me today, would I approve this project if not knowing what the first project? And I would, I think we would be almost there. So having said that, I think that the left side elevation, I think that detail on that side, something there needs to be done. I'm not quite sure if that means that whole side. I don't know, but Jesse, that part needs to have a little bit of work. I agree. I think if you're going to do grids all the way around. Don't just take off one or two sides without grids. So I would ask that you include the grids. Maybe that left elevation is something that I think needs a little bit more work. Other than that, I could see moving this project forward.
Either Commissioner Shores or,
No.
no, not, okay, and Commissioner Say? Do you have any?
Nothing new to add that hasn't already been stated. Thank you.
Moving this forward?
Yeah, I guess we're gonna move this forward, so,
I'll make a motion to approve this action item as written by the staff.
And just to clarify the motion, I know earlier we had Commissioner Camerado had mentioned the detail about the side.
Yeah, so I'd like to maybe, I could see moving it forward, but I would like to see the detail of this the left side elevation, the second floor.
Well,
That-
if
Or do
I
we
think-
just move it, or do we just move it?
We can continue to.
you could
Yeah, let's
continue it.
continue it. Let's,
But earlier you did also mention just something that had happened on the rear elevation you wanted copied on the side elevation.
yeah,
So if you wanted to move it forward, we would just want to make sure we included that detail in the motion to move it forward.
and
But if you want to continue it,
just
then we could.
and see with the window grid.
Well, the windows, I don't know if we've gotten,
Oh.
we don't know if that's something that the applicant would be willing to do. You could certainly reopen the public hearing, ask if they'd want to do that. If you wanted to move it forward, if you wanted to continue it, that's another way. Obviously, all in the purview of the commission, but you just want to make sure if we have those details that you want included in the motion for the approval, that we do put them in the motion approving it.
I would recommend that we can.
yes.
Enough graphic things here that I don't know that we want to just throw it into a consent, because that's what we're doing. If we move it forward with conditions, we're consenting that whatever they draw is going to happen.
And also Commissioner
might give Chris-
Horan, who
Chris a
pulled it
chance to
first place. And, he should have, hopefully he's not gone forever.
So I withdraw my motion and
Okay.
make a new motion to continue this item to regular action.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, and call for a vote.
Commissioner
Can I
Camerado.
just, sorry, before the can have discussion.
Oh, so, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Sorry, I just wanted to thank Jesse though and his client for bringing this to our attention now than later when the house is constructed. So I do appreciate this that they have made this move now.
Definitely.
Agreed.
Okay.
So roll call, Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
and Chair Pfaff.
Aye, thank you. All right, and lastly, sort of, we're on item 9D, 1499 Old Bayshore Highway, 825 Mahler Road. Thanks for your patience. If you are the applicant, well, you are here, so you're not attending via Zoom. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project?
I had communications with the applicant.
Okay, Very good.
via Zoom.
All right. And do we have any recusals? Let the record note all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
We're just getting the slides ready. Hold on one second. My apologies. So this is the proposed project at 1499 Old Bay Shore Highway and 825 Mala Road project. Project site is located east of 101 in the II, the Innovative Industrial Zoning District. It's at the southwest corner of Old Bay Shore and Mala Road. The site currently contains two parcels that would be merged. 3 existing buildings there would be demolished for one development site totaling 2.97 acres. Next slide, please. The proposal before you this evening is a one 8-story office and R&D building. It would be 60% lab, 40% office. The building is being constructed specifically for an R&D use with 16-foot floor to ceiling heights. The parking garage would be a separate building located at the rear of the site along Mala Road. And the proposed project would have 2.35 FAR, where 2.75 FAR is the max. So the total floor area is 304,354 square feet. This project was first before the Planning Commission in May of 2023. The project was fairly well received. There were 3 public comments received at that meeting. After review and consideration, the applicant did consider the Planning Commission comments and revise the plans before you this evening, date March 20th. Changes are summarized on page 2 of your staff report. Next slide, please. This project is subject to the California Environmental Quality Act. ICF is our CEQA consultant, and they are available this evening for questions. They're joining us via Zoom. We prepared an initial study, mitigated negative declaration, that was published for a 30-day comment period earlier this year. The document did conclude that there were potential environmental effects, but they could all be mitigated to less than significant levels. 2 comment letters were received during our public review period, and those have been responded to or addressed in our response to comments memo. It's a part of the CEQA document that was delivered with your packet. In addition, we have a mitigation monitoring reporting plan that summarizes all the mitigation measures that will be implemented during the construction of the project. The next slide, please. The site is going to be accessed primarily on Mala Road for vehicles. So the garage entrance is at the rear of the site. There would also be 2 driveways for drop-off and pickup area, and the main entrance to the building facing Mala Road. For the parking, we did use, because it is specific for lab office use for the R&D, so the parking requirement was calculated based upon those uses. And the required parking per code is 471 spaces, where the applicant is proposing 639 parking spaces. The applicant has provided a TDM, a transportation demand management plan, to reduce single vehicle occupancy to the site. And this plan is as an attachment in your CEQA document. The TDM does allow a reduction of 20% of the required parking per code. But as you can see, they're not reducing the parking, but they are offering several measures to reduce single occupancy vehicles in that plan. Next slide, please. The proposed building height would be 151 feet 7 inches. That is measured from Bayshore per our code, and that is actually to the top of the roof screening. The garage would be 76 feet 11 inches. Special permit is required for any height exceeding 65 feet for properties fronting on Old Bay Shore per the II zoning code. Next slide, please. Properties located in the II zone have a base FAR of 0.75. However, they can request additional FAR through the offering of community benefits with Planning Commission approval of the special permit. The applicant is requesting a special permit for Tier 3 development, which requires a minimum of 3 community benefits. They are proposing a 2.35 FAR, and they are proposing to offer 4 community benefits, which include a public plaza that would front along Old Bay Shore, sea level rise infrastructure. This would include raising the site approximately 5.5 feet, from 8 feet to about 13 feet. That'll be the finished floor on the ground level as part of the sea level rise requirements. And in addition, there would be a seawall located along the Mills Creek southern portion of the property at 15.5 feet. Public art at 2 locations on the property, as well as Mills Creek Public Trail, which is about 400 linear feet along the Mills Creek frontage. Staff would note this project, due to the location to the creek, which flows to San Francisco Bay, is subject to BCDC, the Bay Conservation and Development Commission jurisdiction, and the applicant has periodically been meeting with them. One of the conditions of approval is that we will require proof that the project has been approved by BCDC before we issue the building permit. So that's been covered in the conditions. Next slide, please. The requested entitlements before you this evening for action are the mitigated negative declaration, which is in a separate resolution, as well as commercial design review, special permit for building height, special permit for community benefits for the increased FAR under Tier 3, as well as a recommendation to council for the vesting tentative parcel map for the lot combination. So staff has provided in the staff report for you suggested findings for all of those, along with 51 recommended conditions of approval. Those also incorporate the mitigation measures from the CEQA document. Next slide, please. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. We have a big team here tonight with the developer and their project architect and some of their technical specialists as well. And as I mentioned earlier, our CEQA consultant from ICF is available via Zoom should we have questions that they need to respond to. So thank you.
So do any of you have questions for staff? I just have one quick one. And first of all, thank you for bringing us all the plans early, and that was appreciated.
You're welcome.
So somewhere in all the papers, I just wanted to make sure I read them right. Is it for BCDC that a project should stay 10 feet away from the bank of a stream, or do I need to ask them?
100 feet.
Oh, it's 100 feet.
It's a 100-foot band. So on the site plan, I can find the sheet for it.
Oh.
The our project architect has drawn in their jurisdictional boundary. There are no structures in that area. Our code is not specific to say you can't build in there. We don't want anything to restrict any future potential sea level rise infrastructure that we might want to do. So that's usually something that we're a little more discretionary, but their jurisdiction is within that band.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good. So then I'm going to open the public hearing.
Sorry, I had a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
Sorry. Mhm.
Catherine, do you know, I couldn't see in any of the drawings, currently on the south side of Mahler, so the side that's against the property, there is street parking. And is that going to be continued going forward, or will that side of the street not have parking allowed?
Do you mean in front of the subject property or
in
on
front of the
north side?
subject property on Mahler?
That will be an issue because there are 3 driveways along Mahler. So we'll work with Public Works to make that determination. But given the line of sight required for ingress and egress from those 3 driveways, I would say it will be quite limited. We may be able to put a few in between the drop off and pickup semicircular driveway at the front. But that's something we'll work with Public Works on. So there
Okay.
will be quite a few spaces lost, but I wouldn't say we'd have to eliminate all the parking. But it really has to do with line of sight. You usually have red curbs to each side of the driveway to allow for that clearance.
Yeah, and that's mainly why I'm asking, because driving down that street today with, you know, parking on the left and the right sides of that road, there's very limited visibility, and the road becomes very narrow feeling as well. And with this much car transportation, I mean, so many cars moving in and out each day, I was just kind of curious if it will give some more elbow room, if you will, on that street.
Any more?
I have
questions?
another question about improvements to the Bay Trail connection. Is that something for you, or would that be for the applicant?
The applicant is going to touch on that a bit. I will say that early on in the project, there was a proposal to have a direct connection to the Bay Trail and to the bird sanctuary across the street. It was a mid-block connection. We do have a signalized intersection at the corner of Mahler and Old Bay Shore that is going to be improved quite a bit. But in working with our Public Works staff, the mid-block crossing with a direct connection to the new 400 linear foot Mills Creek Trail was not something that Public Works staff felt was a safe change to make on that road, especially given that we are seeing some proposed changes coming forth with some new Bayshore improvements, streetscape improvements on the horizon. So the applicant will be enhancing that connection, but at the signalized intersection in consultation with Public Works engineering staff.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Audrey. So any additional? Sean? No? Okay. All right. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would you like to present your?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Do I need to hit the button or are we good to go?
No, I think just, you're tall, so pull it maybe closer.
Great.
Mhm.
Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight, Commission. Really appreciate the feedback that we received last year. It was about this time last year. And we have a presentation for you this evening that we'd like to present about the project, some of the feedback we received and how we incorporated it. So we'll start there. And Jacob, did we remove parking on Mahler Road? So I'm pretty sure Commissioner Stay's comment was captured in the plans. We're
Just,
working through it.
just to back up, so you are Peter.
Yes, I am Peter.
Have to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Okay,
Apologies.
I figured, but yeah, thank you.
So here we go. So my name is Peter Banzoff. I work at Helios Real Estate Partners. We're a joint venture partner with King Street Properties. King Street is a premier life science developer and operator of buildings across America. And we have a project down the street from this property. It's 1699 Bayshore High, which is under construction right now. And we really believe in Burlingame. And so we're here tonight to show you another project that we think would be a great addition to the city. And we feel that's strong representation of the life science community. In the audience, I have with me partners on the design side from DGA and with Peterson Studios, who also worked on Burlingame Point, if you remember that property. On the call, we have technical consultants as well if questions arise. Next slide, please. So we're here tonight, as staff has mentioned, to seek a few approvals from you. Adoption of our MND, special permit for height, commercial design review, and four proposed community benefits. And one thing I wanted to raise up to you is that we heard you at the design review hearing last year. And some of the feedback that we received was about the building form, which I think came from Commissioner Schmidt, the public plaza and how do we activate it, which is an important topic. And then also with that ground floor activation. And I want to show how we incorporated that into our project this evening. Some other commentary, the CEQA findings were that there are no impacts that can't be mitigated. We actually filed this under a Class 32 exemption, but because of the number of projects coming to Burlingame, our project did to study water use, and that's why we went to a mitigate negative deck. That was actually a good thing because it allowed us to have a more comprehensive review. We also have gone through BCDC Design Review Board and received approval from them to move forward. So they are in support of our property, our project. They have a 100-foot setback, which is not meant to say that you can't build within it. They just get oversight into what you're building. Burlingame has a 35-foot setback, which you may not build into for the sea level rise component. We'll talk about that. And then lastly, we also got through ALUCT approval, which is fairly straightforward in this location because of the way the airport runways are positioned. And we did a bunch of community outreach over the past year, and that information has been fed into our project.
Just for purposes of everyone like me, what is ALUC?
It's the Airport Land Use Commission.
Thank you.
And so this is our project, 1499 Bay Shore. If you remember, if you are familiar with the neighborhood, you have the Bay Landing Hotel in the foreground. Benihana is at the point. You have the Shorebird Sanctuary between the two of them. Out into the distance is One Bay Plaza, and then you also have the Hyatt Regency. And so the idea that we're trying to fit our property into the community and the quilt of this neighborhood. And there's a very obviousness from our landscape. Next slide, please. This property has come up in front of this commission actually a couple times. It goes back all the way to 2019 when it was a hotel. It was a 400-key hotel built on a parking podium. And we saw this property going through the approval process. And then unfortunately, COVID really threw a wrench in everybody's lives, including this project. And the property had to be listed for sale. And we saw a vision there that we could take the development further. And you'll see some existing conditions of why we think this could be improved. We decided to build a building that had the garage separated from the life science building for a couple of reasons. One is about vibration criteria. When a car drives on a parking ramp, it creates vibration within the structure, and that translates through the building. So when you park underneath a life science building, that vibration vibrates the upper floors, and that makes it more difficult, and you have to strengthen the building. So by splitting that out, you have a lower bar to clear. But we still bought the property assuming that you could have the two structures separated. And the reason we felt strongly about that is because we could create the same type of community benefit that the hotel provided, a little bit of access along Mills Creek, good views, community benefits, and upzoning. But we recognized when we put that together that that wasn't the best project that we could do. And we thought that we could do a better job by buying the property behind us, which gave more space to work within. And so by doing that, we pulled the garage back, and then we rotated the building so that it would face along Mahler Road versus more on Bay Shore. And what that did is it did reduce the amount of views from the upper stories of the building, but it widened the access point into Mills Creek. And that was some of the feedback that BCDC gave to the previous project. So we tried to act on that. And so the project you have in front of you tonight is the last image on this slide, which is the two separated things with a larger community benefit area on the side. Next slide, please. Existing conditions, if you've driven the site lately, it's in a little bit of disrepair, and we're trying to do our best to keep up with it. Trash gets dumped on the site. We've had people in the buildings. We're working to keep them out of the buildings. So we're trying to advance the project because these buildings have reached their end of useful life. They were built in 1960s, and they just have there can be more to be done in this area. Next slide. And so what can we do? By rotating the building and pulling it back from Mills Creek, we really create the best part of our land, and we give it to the opportunity for a public plaza. And so that's what's shown in yellow. And you can see the two differentiating lines, the 35-foot setback versus the 100-foot setback, which is in purple. We showed the garage to BCDC, which protrudes into the 100-foot setback. They're okay with it because we're providing a lot of community benefits. We have a new 400-foot long trail, a new plaza, we have public parking in the garage, and we're trying to bring that all together into a very thoughtful, well thought out plan. Importantly, this side of the property is southern exposure, so it gets all the sun. And because of the orientation of the buildings, it's protected from the prevailing winds, which come from the northwest. Next slide, please. And so when you put this into a site plan, we're not envisioning a area where you have a very dense concrete plaza. We actually have a lot of lush landscaping. We're going to double the number of trees that are out on site today. And you'll get a variety of seating options, plus a meandering trail with overlooks along the way. So you have an interaction as you go down the trail. Slide, please. As staff mentioned, we have 4 community benefits to share with you this evening. They're shown here in this diagram. We have public art in 2 locations. We have a new public plaza, which is oversized. We have a new public trail system, and then we have sea level rise infrastructure, which I'll get into. Next slide, please. So the public plaza is really the nucleus of the community benefits. It's oversized. It has the opportunity for great vistas. And the reason for that is we are surcharging the site by bringing it up to 13 feet. And by doing that, that elevates the pedestrian experience above Bayshore Highway. So if you're at an overlook and you're looking out over the road, you'll see into the shorebird sanctuary, the planes landing, and you'll be in a sheltered environment. Next slide, please. The public art has been located in the most prominent locations that we can show towards the public. So it's not facing the building itself or to our neighbors, it's really pushing outward. And so we picked this location at the intersection of Bayshore Highway and Mahler Road, which is meant to bring that human scale into the mix. That's what you'll see every day. You'll have that interaction with at the corner, and that will help bring traffic calming elements to it. On the plaza side, we have a new enclosure wall, which will all be an art installation. And that's meant to reflect out towards the public, so it draws you into the space. So it's not just for the people there, it's also to be something interactive where people want to go see. Next slide. For sea level rise infrastructure, as boring as this can be, what we try to do is bury our seawall within an earth embankment so that you don't see it, because the riprap isn't the most aesthetically pleasing element that we can put out there. So we put a 15.5-foot wall buried within the soil, and then you see it protrude up very briefly, but that allows us a connection point to take the 17 feet, which is end of century. So it's really meant to be an adaptive way to address what we're dealing with today, which is storm surge, but also be able to protect all of our neighbors to the north and just disappear from the landscape, so you don't actually visit it every day. Next slide. We also have a new 400-foot trail. I have hiked up in Mills Canyon frequently. Maybe this trail someday gets across 101 up there, but that seems hard to envision at this 5 minutes, but we do understand the ability to connect trails into the network of trails that are there. And what this does is it takes the public parking that's in our garage and meanders it through a pedestrian experience to the Bay Trail. And you pass by our plaza on the way. Next slide. And this is a diagram of just how wide that plaza is. This is where the 100-foot setback actually works in our favor. So we have 100 feet of outdoor space that we're giving to the public as a benefit. And that sizing allows us to be able to drive food trucks between our building and our parking garage and park them up here so that we can activate it with a food amenity. We're also going to put a public restroom within our project so that if people are here to eat at our building, they have a place to use the facilities as well. Next slide. So when you put this all together, you get a very lush, diverse, plaza. Next slide. And you get a lot of opportunity for activation. It may not be that obvious on a two-dimensional diagram, so we tried to create new renderings to help illustrate that and how really lush and inviting this will be. Next slide. As I mentioned earlier, the access is going east-west predominantly, and it takes you all the way to the Bay Trail for the pedestrian experience. Next slide. And for vehicles, we have loading, and this is all kind of tucked away so you don't have to see it every day. So our loading dock is tucked inside the building versus being dock at the exterior. We have a parking garage that has 2 parking ramps, which keeps the building lower in elevation versus taller. And we have a drop off, which is along Mahler Road. And that allows for people to drive up, get out of the car if it's an Uber or a taxi from the airport, or for those FedEx or delivery trucks, they don't have to stop and throw the hazards on and let the packages be delivered. They can drive up and get out of the path of travel. Next slide. And so I'm going to transition here to Gary, who's going to speak to the architecture. And we have a little show and tell.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Gary Levers. I'm design principal with DGA. It's nice to be back in the room. Peter's going to share some samples of glass with you. We thought that was really important because the renderings only tell you so much. There's a kind of liveliness about the glass, which we think was really important for you to be able to see. So you are going to see some samples there. This is essentially a building that has an undulation of glass, i.e. it's vision glass, but also the spandrel glass. There are some very eloquent horizontal bands which separate the floors. And what you'll see at the first two levels is the building is sculpted away at the lower levels. So it kind of creates this undercroft with the exposed columns forming a natural colonnade. And that's where we have the more transparent glass, which then marches up the building and forms the space that become the balconies as they vertically transition up the building. So next, please. Yes, and there you're just seeing an example of where the frit pattern stops at the fourth level. Next, please. The garage takes the perforated metal material from the mechanical screen and then reprises it on the insets of the parking garage. So kind of ties the two structures together again nicely. There's a little accent paint, and then also we have a vine wall, which I think again breaks that scale down. Next. So here's what we're looking at. A building really that embraces its context. You can see that the courtyard really is a very natural extension of the sanctuary. And in response, the undercroft of the building sort of sculpts away, sort of peels away, and really creates a very inviting transition from the courtyard to the entrance of the building. And then you can see that balcony just stepping up the building. That wide elevation is really broken down in an elegant way as those outdoor spaces step up to the building. And that's where you have that more transparent glass. Next. And as you pull in there, I think this is just another view that really shows you how activated and all of the possibilities that exist in that ground plane. And I think this one really draws together the courtyard as an extension of the sanctuary. Next. So as we're between Mahler, the intersection of Mahler and Bayshore here, we're really trying to activate that corner. There's artwork, there's a cascading stair that leads you to the entrance. But most importantly, and why we wanted you to see that glass, the ability to be able to see inside the building. And as you move around the glass, the reflections from the water, from all the activity, really create a lot of activity and really sort of activates that corner. So then moving through the stairs, next please. You're at the drop-off point. Much like the other side of the building kind of sculpts away and creates an undercroft. You've got that warmth from the wood soffit and then the entrance canopy, which denotes the address. Again, a really, really graceful way to come from the intersection to the entrance to the building. So finally, this is our building. We think it's a really beautiful expression of nature. The sanctuary and the urban with Bayshore coming together, being celebrated with a building we think has a very sensitive and appropriate scale to its neighbors, but also would just be a fabulous addition to the Burlingame skyline.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So don't go anywhere. Maybe there's some questions. Any questions? Yes. Commissioner Camarado.
Did you guys do a wind study to see how the wind comes, especially in the front of the building where you have the balconies, and how the wind will impact that area?
We did do a wind study, and it's a windy location by default. The prevailing winds come out of the northwest, which is the San Bruno Mountain Gap in the mornings and most of the day. The winds shift though, particularly in the summer, and they come across from the east. So that's why you see the trees leaning at Burlingame Point, because they get that kind of brunt wind all the time. What we have on the balconies is it's private space. I don't imagine that people are going to spend a tremendous amount of time there. The light there as well will be in this morning facing exposure, but it will be protected from the wind most of the time.
Thank you. Commissioner Say, I can see your face, so want to make sure I don't ignore you. Do you want to ask something or are you?
Yeah, I did have a couple of questions. Thank you for that nice presentation, although I couldn't really see it. I could hear it. It was sounded really nice. But I do have the full set of drawings and documents here, so I have seen everything. I had a question about if there was kind of any update on how the cafe is being developed. I know you don't have a tenant yet and probably still programmatic at this time, but was just curious how any updates there with the cafe.
Sure thing. And that's a deviation from what we showed last year. We proposed an area where a cafe could go. On this set of drawings, we've actually pooled the cafe. The reason for it is over the past year, we've done community outreach to life science users. The feedback we've received from them is they put a very high value on ground floor space for a few reasons. The first one is it's employee retention. They like the ability to get outside quickly. The second reason is they like the fact that it's on the ground floor and they can have sensitive equipment on the ground versus elevated where you have to strengthen the structure. And then lastly, we don't yet know who the tenant is. And so in the absence of having that identified, we'd like to go try and bring a full building user here. And the best way we can do that is have the blankest canvas that we can. And so that's why we have pulled the cafe from the proposal this evening. Now, that's to be said, we heard the commission wanting to have a food amenity and to have an activated, experience for the plaza. And so what we believe it can be achieved is to have a wider access road to get food trucks up into this area to provide restrooms so that the community can come and use the space in its intended purpose and activate a plaza in that fashion. And so that's how we've thought about the process of what the marketplace is asking for versus what the commission did ask for as well.
What about thoughts of like a cafe kiosk or something out in the public area?
With cafe kiosks, the infrastructure that goes involved with that is more challenging than it meets the eye. It's been done in the past, but doesn't give you the variety that we think that you can achieve with having something that is more mobile. And so I guess the way I would frame it, is if I have worked in an office building for, nearly 7 years at the same place. And if you have the same cafe, it was a Starbucks at the time, downstairs, you get the same menu and it's very hard to make that a variety. And so if you have the ability to make it a food truck, you can have it be coffee at any time you want. You can have it be tacos, you can have it be a la carte. And so we think that that's a better solution than having something that's a fixture that then has to be programmed, and then to change the program is much more challenging.
Okay. I think that might be my questions for now. Thank you.
Can I continue on that?
Absolutely. Commissioner Schmidt?
So where in the site plan is that being programmed, and is it actual space or is it emergency vehicle space?
At the end of the emergency vehicle access, it's a hammerhead turn. There's the ability to park a food truck.
It's at the garage end or?
No, towards the plaza.
Towards the plaza. Okay. I think we're losing our access to food and other things in the area as we densify an office. Your project and several others are taking over areas that are otherwise had restaurants now or had restaurants that have gone out of business, but that area is going to become more dense with not amenities. And so we feel like as we continue to approve projects like this, and if they don't have anything, I think it just makes that area worse. I understand the food truck concept, but for us, that is only as good as somebody programs it and has them come. Whereas a built environment, you kind of you're going to put a tenant in. I do like the idea of putting it out. There are several projects I've seen where they have done remote venues outside of the building. And yes, it is more challenging because I've done them, and getting all the utilities there can be a pain for a small vendor. But it also then enhances the experience in the plaza. Right now, it feels like the plaza is going to be mostly a tenant piece than a public piece if we're not engaging the public. Now, it is a good thing that we're improving the shoreline there, which I like. It's thinking about what is the draw to there versus the several other public spaces that are being created by other buildings up and down Bayshore. So the lack of a programmed public amenity like that makes me nervous. The idea of having the food trucks come and then have a variety is a good thing. It's just if it gets ignored, it doesn't ever happen, and we have no control over that. So that's a worry. My other question, public parking. How many spaces are going to be available to the public?
There's 8 covered parking stalls in the garage.
8?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, those end my questions. Thank you.
I have a question as it relates to sea level rise. That area where the bird sanctuary is, where the creek starts, is very flat. At what point does sea level rise overburden Bayshore before it even goes into the Mills Creek area that we're expanding on this plan, which is great, but it feels like it would overcome Bayshore. And I do notice that the east side of the building is elevated. Why isn't that also considered sea level rise infrastructure, or does it need that seawall in order for that to happen?
To answer your question, I think is a more global comment about the bayfront, which is a mixture of public and private lands. And so we don't own the corner at the Mills Creek and Bayshore Highway. You'll see that as a carve out for sure to improved, which will work out the details of Public Works. But that's PG&E infrastructure as well as part of the bridge infrastructure. So we can't do work within that property. Your comment about the Bay Shore or Bayfront, it really is a comprehensive approach. And so, yes, you're correct. If we were to build a seawall at the front of Bayshore, what would happen to Bayshore Highway? I think the bigger issue for the Bayfront is dealt with one shoreline. And we're trying to do our part, which is the tidally influenced component of Mills Creek, which is on our property.
I see, I understand. I guess maybe it might be a question for staff down the road is the cumulative effect of all these Bayshore infrastructures making sense? Or are we creating gaps and nice to have infrastructure? But as we know, the whole bay is going to rise, not just in segmented areas. And so I'm just concerned that we're looking at this as a public benefit, but is it actually? And that, like I said, may not be a question for you. This may be a question for the entire Burlingame Bayshore area. And like I said, that I can defer that to staff. But thank you for the comment.
I just have a quick question. So on your rendering, across from your building, there's, I guess it's glorified sidewalk, I don't know, and there's a bridge thing there. Sorry, I can't remember. Are you improving that? No. Is that what you're imagining someday it could be? Not doing it?
Our thought was initially to have a mid-block crossing where we would tie that component into our building. We don't have a mid-block crossing, but we're not opposed to helping that area be better. And we did that with the landing down the street. And so I think that's something we wanted to come to you tonight and say that we're committed to keeping the Bay Trail, as nice as an amenity. It's not required of us, but I think we would, be willing to contribute towards that effort. And we brought Peterson Studios in here. We, again, don't own the land. Our ideas would be something we'd give to staff with the monetary ability to execute on it.
Mhm. Great, thank you. All right, we good? Then, all right, then I'm going to open it up to the public, right? So
There's no emails.
here, I don't think so. Would like to speak or? No. So anyone online? Letters?
No emails.
Okay. All right, then I'm gonna, close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I can start. Thank you for the presentation. It's really well done. The plans are exquisite. Definitely understand what this is. I like the building a lot. I liked it the first time. I know some other commissioners thought it was a little plain or flat. I didn't mind it. I think it looks good, and the orientation that you guys have chosen, I think, is ideal. I'm concerned from exactly what Commissioner Schmidt said. I feel like public amenity needs to have a draw, like you said. It needs to be activated. If you build it, they will come, as they say. And if you don't have a reason to go over there, why am I going to take my kids across Bayshore off the Bay Trail to go to this public plaza? I just don't see myself doing that. I do agree with Commissioner Schmidt. I think it's going to be a great amenity for the tenant. And the worst thing in the world is to approve these buildings for them not to be occupied. So that is extremely important to me, to make sure these buildings are not just going to be ghost buildings. And I'll take your word for it that occupying an entire building is more feasible than trying to do it segmented. I can get that. So it's a problem for me. I wanted a cafe there. I mean, I think that would be nice. All these big buildings, I think that's one of the nice little parts to it. Again, I'm just going to say I'm concerned about the entirety of the Bay Trail infrastructure and the sea level rise component. That seems to be a common theme with many of the public amenities that these big buildings are proposing. And I guess maybe I can put it on a different item for a future meeting. I'm trying to understand how this is actually a benefit. This specific Mills Creek enhancement, which I can see. I mean, fundamentally it works where it is, but as we just noted, the water's just going to go around. And so, again, that's what's on my mind, is that cumulative effect of the sea level rise and how that actually, I guess I'm struggling to understand how this one actually helps the city in and itself. And again, if it's more towards a cumulative totality, then that makes sense. But I guess I don't see that yet.
Yeah, through the chair, if I could explain a little bit about the vision of how that all works is ultimately, yes, the entire bayfront will need to be protected, and that's something that One Shoreline is wanting to do. What One Shoreline is hoping and what the city would like is, as projects come forward, they kind of pre-build their piece of the protection. So the standards that they're building to they've been conceived by One Shoreline and ultimately will be kind of stitched together with everything to each side. What One Shoreline doesn't want to do is come in 10 years after a project's built and tear it all up. And so as it is now, sure, as right now it doesn't connect to anything, but there is a wall that is built in there, and then it'll connect to the next adjacent property. And each project is able to design their landscape in a way that the protection fits within their kind of design aesthetic. If One Shoreline comes in and puts in protections, they may be a little more, engineering focused as opposed to urban design focused. So we're asking the projects to kind of front that. It is both a cost as well as an obligation to do their part. And but yeah, each piece does not work just in isolation. They do have to be stitched together ultimately.
So obviously this is a benefit to this building and to this lot. I mean, how then does that define a community benefit at this time?
It would mean that when the full infrastructure is put in, this One Shoreline or whoever ends up doing the improvements is not going to have to put in the protections along the creek. They'll already be there. They'll connect on each side, but that piece of the project will already be done.
I see. So it's as a subsidy, small subsidy for the, I see. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner Camarado.
So thank you for the project and thanks. I know we had a meeting the other day and thanks for the explanation of everything that you guys are doing engineering wise to build up the property and for the plaza. I think I'm going to, I think I said this at our meeting the other day. I think a food truck is a really great idea. I think it's going to be hard to get food trucks out there. It is going to have to take time for someone to organize that. And I don't know that that will happen. It's very windy out there. And we all know that the wind over on the Bay Shore, good days, bad days, you know, but it's cold no matter what. It gets windy out there. I am in agreement with my fellow commissioners that some sort of an enclosed coffee shop where we can actually sit down and see the wetlands and enjoy the bay like you do at Kincaid's is a public benefit. I think that it would do our city a complete disservice not to have some sort of a cafe or a place to sit inside. If we're going to take a walk out there and we want to go sit and just enjoy being outside and just enjoy watching outside, we don't have anywhere to do that. There's no enclosed place that we can do that. You know, there's a coffee shop over at the Meta campus. I see it engaged by the public. It would be interesting to see how that's working. But I think that's important. I also think that Commissioner Schmidt mentioned the public parking. I think you have like 600 parking spots or so, and you're giving 8 public spots. I think that's, I would ask that we have at least 20, if not more, so that we can actually utilize that space more. I know that the buildings over at 555, 577 Airport Boulevard had a number of public spots and they've always been full. So having 8 spots, I don't think is quite enough for what you have in the building. Those are my big things. I think you've done a really great job on the details of the building, architecturally, the design, how you've configured it. I love everything about it, but I really want to see something where we can go sit out there and enjoy.
I'll go. Yeah, I think the public parking, and it doesn't mean that it has to be designated during all hours. I think that there's a way to look at how do you program off hours. You're not going to need 600 spaces during some of the off hours. So how can you program such that some of the space could be used for more public parking during that time? As we talked to the group that's doing the one across the street, we went from 20 to 100 in our meeting. And so they were thinking about how could they reprogram an area so that it's not locked off from security all the time. That's the key piece there is how do you make it so that it's accessible without necessarily being behind security all the time so that it can be used by both. You already heard me about the food part. I've asked for it in all of the projects that have been around, that have come before us. And I think it's an important piece to try and engage this area. I like the site plan a lot. I like what you guys have done to make it work. I think it's a difficult site when you really think about all the different things that are going on, and I can appreciate the intricacies and seeing it, how it developed from the original hotel site plan to where we are today is actually a huge improvement. I like the efficiency of this project and how it lays out. I'm supportive of the EIR. I'm supportive of the height's not a problem to me. I like the idea of having the public restroom, which is a help, because that's the other piece that we find we don't have any public amenities is restrooms. I think that the south and west elevations that are facing both the plaza and the bay are good-looking elevations. I'm just not real sold on the front entry. The rendering you showed tonight was actually a nice looking rendering of the entry, but there's not a whole lot in that elevation. It's just glass into glass, and there's not really depth in the detail there to see anything other than glass. I would recommend in the future, the renderings you brought tonight were a huge help in seeing the character, which the drawings didn't do anything for me over the weekend. So that was an opportunity for us we could have seen the renderings, in paper, would have helped us be able to see the qualitative pieces that you guys are putting in ahead of time, because otherwise we only see them for a brief few seconds here. But project's gone a long way, and I can be supportive of it. Thank you.
Commissioner Say?
Thank you. Yes, I think a lot of items have already been noted by my fellow commissioners, but I also wanted to thank the applicant for the thorough presentation and for all the renderings that have been provided, all the drawings, the very complete package that we have here. I think the design of the building is quite nice. I think it fits the program needs, and hopefully you'll find a nice tenant. Reminds me of the landing, and I almost kind of wish the landing was just out of view of the rendering that's on the cover of our set of drawings. I think it would have been nice to see that nearby, just to kind of see how it's kind of this congruous connection along that street. I think the landscaping is really beautiful. I think that public amenity space is nicely developed, with the exception of the lack of, as we've all heard now, the cafe or some type of eating establishment to provide the public. So I won't go into that again, since you've already heard that multiple times. I also want to say I appreciate the art, the elements at the corner of Mahler and Old Bay Shore, and as well as a draw into the public amenity space, or that public plaza off of the street. One concern I have is just looking at the, and this is probably outside, I'm not sure what your involvement would be, but there's that median that's in the middle of the road on this front rendering that we're looking at on this cover of your set of drawings. And with however the Bay Trail gets developed on the other side, the way it's rendered right now, it seems like there would be a natural connection between that, the public, or not the public, but the access stairs leading up to the public plaza and to this bridge across the way to the Bay Trail. And with the median being as wide as it is proposed there, I know there was discussion of some type of a road diet that may be developing along here. It almost is drawing people to want to hop, skip, and jump over the road over to the Bay Trail. And so I know that Catherine mentioned earlier that Public Works or maybe others as well, is not in support at this time, or maybe it's still in development of some type of connection there. But I'm kind of concerned there how pedestrians will want to just hop over and jump and run across the street, as opposed to walk all the way up to the traffic signal area at the far corner. There's just something to think about there. On the parking front, I was just looking at your parking calculations, and you more than met all of the parking requirements. And with your TDM program, I think you're only required 377 spaces, if I'm reading that correctly. Nonetheless, I think the higher number there is 471 spaces required, and you are providing 639. And so I think that there's definitely ample opportunity there to provide some additional public use spaces, since you've more than exceeded the need on the parking front. So I would love it if you can consider that. I am in support of all of the application for mitigated negative declaration, the commercial design review. I think that building's very nice. And the special permits for building height, I have no issue with. So, and all the other elements here on the staff report all seem to be approvable. Just had those few comments to add in terms of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner.
I think most of my comments have already been stated by other commissioners at this point, which I think I generally agree with. Yeah, I think that the lack of some kind of ground space cafe or restaurant tenant would hurt. In the long run, it doesn't have to be large. I know that the Burlingame Post Office is looking at incorporating outdoor seating into their actual dining capacity plans. But yeah, I do appreciate the change from the last time that this was here. They're noticeable and they're good. Yeah, no, I think we've discussed it really thoroughly. I don't think I have anything more to add, really.
Thank you. So I'll go. So I do agree with my commissioners, my fellow commissioners. And I did want to bring up, this reminds me actually much more of the Meta campus than anything we've seen, because mainly how generous it is with the landscaping, which I really appreciate. You're over and above, way over and above what's required. And maybe that is because BCDC wanted you away from the creek, whatever the reason. Your building feels very much in proportion to the setting. I think that's great. Like, we don't see that much. So thank you for all of that. Regarding the restaurant situation, it seems like we say this all the time, but even back to when it was Facebook, we wanted them to have a restaurant, we wanted them to have a daycare, we wanted them to have all kinds of things. And in reality, what we ended up with was a very small cafe. And I don't think it's because they don't want something else. It's because there's just, I don't know how to resolve this. There's not that many people out there yet. So what do you do? How do you make, is it a destination like, let's go eat out there at such a great restaurant? Like, we lost a lot of restaurants that we had out there that were, ages ago, like Gulliver's and stuff that were destination places. But at the same time, the rest of Burlingame really didn't have much. So it's for people who just got here, that's the truth. And right. So
I think they have to build it so that we,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
we don't ask for it. That's where we need some spaces out there for the public to go and have a good time. We have a
There's
lot of
like going to
Top Golf going. We have things
going to be like a tipping point where, something like that, where there's a reason. So I totally understand your dilemma, because every one of these buildings seems to have the same issue. So anyway, but I think it looks, I think it looks great. I think you've done a really, really good job, and agree particularly with Commissioner Say's comment about the temptation to just jump across that median. That's not real good. Maybe we need a bunch of trees or something. I have no idea, but something that was a really good comment. So it's pretty much it. Definitely would appreciate more parking spaces, because you have more than enough. That would be great. And also some, if you could, as you were mentioning, contribute to the other side of the street as much as possible, so that it's sort of a package altogether and it's all beautiful together. Anything that you could help with that trail, making it more beautiful, that would be nice. So those are my comments.
I did actually just want to add in one more thing.
Of course.
I wanted to just echo what Commissioner Say said, and also Commissioner Pfaff, about the crosswalk. In the future, I'll be interested to dig into how that process works and how it could or couldn't have worked here, but I think that the lack of it is definitely a net negative to the project. And I think that there is exactly, it looks like there should already be one there based off of the flow patterns. And that's not anything that the project developers are in control of. This is a staff or a city thing. So just wanted to echo that and put that out there.
I can add something, Commissioner Shores, just to give a little bit of history. The proposal that was originally submitted by Helios did include the crosswalk.
Okay.
We had several meetings with the development team, their traffic engineers, as well as the city's traffic engineers. And essentially, the distance between the signalized intersection at Mahler and Bay Shore, they looked at the speed from that takeoff point when the light turns green to where the crosswalk would be. And they felt that that was too short of a distance to have a crosswalk location. So Helios was very much supportive of it. This was a discussion that they also had with BCDC. So it was the city's feeling that it would, could pose an issue in terms of safety because it would be unsignalized. It's not to say, I can bring this issue up again. We are looking at the Bayshore feasibility and streetscape improvement plan. That's on Public Works list of projects that are coming up for them. So that's something that's in the works. And I think the details about the median, that was a great comment by Commissioner Say. And I wrote a note about that. So perhaps I can circle around internally just to kind of talk about that a little bit more. And as that streetscape plan evolves, we can kind of throw that out. But for now, Helios was asked specifically by Public Works to eliminate that from their project. So I do hear your comments. I'm happy to pass those along, and maybe that's something that the city can work on undertaking or exploring other ways to make that happen. But just to kind of give shed a little more light on that issue for you, I thought that was helpful. So.
Yeah, that was very helpful. I was actually under the impression that this was either a signalized crossing or one of the crossings with the flashing yellow lights you could press a button for. I didn't know it was unsignalized as originally proposed. So I definitely understand the decision if it was an unsignalized crossing. But yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add a quick comment there?
Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you. And thanks, Catherine, for explaining. And I can understand that the rather short distance between the proposed crosswalk and what looks like there should be one by that secondary public access. But what if the crosswalk was pushed more south? There's like two bridges in this in this rendering. Two kind of bridge connections to the Bay Trail. And I'm wondering if there was one, a crosswalk a little bit more south between those two thicker medians, if maybe that would be more of a greater distance apart from the other crosswalk and more amenable for Public Works to consider, just bringing that up as a potential idea to have another connection to the other side.
Like a hand activated is what you're saying, right? Like a.
Yeah, or one that you step in and it starts blinking or whatever. Not a traffic signal, but some type of crosswalk creation. Thank you.
Yeah, I also, I don't know if I said it or not, but I really think you've designed a really beautiful building. It's very subtle. Just where you have the clear and it's just very beautiful, I think. And it's just not enormous. It's totally all in proportion. So I think you did a really good job. So I guess we have to do, and I'm support of whatever environmental, all that, this thing. Yeah, there. Yeah.
If this project were to move forward, what's next on the road? Or does this go straight to building?
So, yeah, so first of all, just in terms of looking at the resolutions in front of the commission, the first resolution is for the environmental review. So you take that first to make sure that before anything, you are signing off on the environmental review. Then you would look at the entitlements. Should it be approved, then the next step would be building. does not go to city council unless there is either an appeal or it's called up. That's a little different than the big project you looked at, the 1300 one that had a development agreement, which obligated it to go to the city council. So this would be, the planning commission does have final say unless it's appealed.
So Kevin, I have a question. I think all of us up here really are in support of having some sort of a public amenity here inside, like a coffee shop. Do we make that part of our approval process? How do we, can we mandate the?
So there's a couple of options. One is, I mean, you could condition it. It's a little tricky because you don't really know what you'll get. You could continue, which then you could see what the applicant can come back with. Those are really the two options. I don't know if Assistant City Attorney has other suggestions.
No, just that if that's something that you're considering, it would probably be maybe worthwhile thinking about reopening the public hearing, letting the applicant state, their opinion on it, because if they are not willing to do that in any way, it would be helpful to know regarding your decision today. So that might be something to consider doing as well. But I agree with Director Gardner. Approving the project is certainly an option. Denying a project's an option, which it does not seem based off of what we've heard here today that that's on anyone's mind, or continuing the project. But it may be worthwhile reopening the public hearing to hear any comments.
So do you want us to do the other thing first, or you want to go back to?
It's up to the purview of the chair, but I would say it wouldn't be prudent to act on the CEQA necessarily right now, because if the CEQA is changed based off of what the planning
Right,
commission
got it.
wants to do, it would just be kind of a useless approval of that ISMP.
All right, then, with the approval of my fellow commissioners, I'd like to open the public comment again.
Thank you. It's difficult to sit there and just, take feedback without being able to respond to it. So I do appreciate the opportunity to talk through it. I do want to speak to the cafe. A lot was mentioned. So I want to just kind of cover the topics in my head. We are 100% supportive of a mid-block crossing, and we proposed a beacon activation similar to what we had with the landing. We thought that that was a appropriate solution given the proximity of another crosswalk. We support what staff has told us, and hence why you see the project, what you see tonight. We would like that crossing. I think it does add a lot of value, and there's an obviousness to it, which has been called out time and time again. That's the crosswalk. I know that Public Works is working through that. We're working hand in hand with Public Works. There's a bigger picture and we're just a piece of it. So I don't want to ignore the effort that they're going through, which is more complicated than I can imagine. That's that piece. Regarding the sea level rise infrastructure, I think the way that we have considered it is we're future proofing. And we're future proofing without it being aesthetically awful. It's easy to build something that is utilitarian, and it's a little nervous as a resident in the community of what that could look like. There are areas that are closer to San Francisco Bay, like some of the hotels along the bayfront, some of the restaurants that would really lose that ambiance that they enjoy right now if a large riprap wall is built. And so we're trying to think through, okay, today we have storm surge issues. So how do we build up a seawall that prevents Mills Creek, which is highly influenced, from flooding our neighbors? I can't control 833 Mahler or the culverted area down the street. I would wish I could, but we don't. And so what I can do, what we can do is we can design something that's really thoughtful, and then it's adaptable. So it's not so blunt and at the end of the day, but it's really effective. And so that comes with a pretty heavy price, and we're trying to think of it as it's the best way that we can future-proof it for not just right now, but for the longevity of the building, which is 75 years. So by then we'll be end of century. So we're trying to think that way. That brings us to public parking. The garage is configured with the ability to put access gates in it. It can be done at Mahler Road, which was kind of our first approach. We acknowledge that, without public parking, there really is a reduced amount of vibrancy that can be on the trail system. So we offered up public parking through the community outreach that we received from BCDC and from the community around. 8 stalls was a number that we came through from a understanding of other projects in the neighborhood. I was not here during the presentation on Peninsula Crossing. I understand how they can flex. It's 1,000 car parking structures. I mean, it's the size of that project is 5 times ours. So it's proportionally different. I think we have the ability to move gates within the garage to the second level, which opens up one whole ramp tray. So instead of 8 stalls, which are at grade, that allows for all the ADA access, which is an important piece of all this with public parking, there can be extension, which goes down the ramp before the gates. That would be feasible because now I'm not moving the gates up into the building, which reduces the capacity of the garage. If that's something that the commission would like us to do, I think we can do that. And that probably doubles the parking count would be my guess. I'd have to study it, but it's something that we can make it flexible hours. It can be dedicated ones, but that first tray, I think, is really easily done. Beyond that, as it becomes more complicated. And that could be something I think we could take back and if it was a condition, we would be accepting of it. So that's the parking. The Bay Trail component of it, what we did previously at the landing was we don't own the Bay Trail area similar to waterfront properties. We recognize the association of it though. At the landing, we contributed $100,000 to, basically clean up the access point that was stuff between the Marriott and the T intersection and the Fox parking garage. It's not the most desirable. We don't have control at how to direct the money because it's not our property. So we came up with an idea with our project and we are committed to that funding. We would propose something like that here. We would have Peterson sketch something up and then we would contribute the similar amount of money that we did because we think that that would actually create the same inviting environment that we have on the Mills Creek Trail across the street. And so that makes a cohesive environment. If that's something that wants to be conditioned, that's something I think we would accept. The one thing that's difficult for us is the plaza and the cafe. And the reason for that is that's not what the life science community wants. They don't want a cafe in the building. The property that you saw at Peninsula Crossing is a office building that can swing to lab. That's why the parking ratio is 2.5 per 1,000 versus 2.0 like ours. That's why they have a taller building. As you go up in a structure, you can't have control access space for chemical storage. So every floor above level 6, you lose that and it becomes less valuable. Interesting weirdness to office, where as you go higher, you get better views, you get more premium. It's the opposite for life science. Lower floors, better equipment, higher premium. And so that's a difficult position for us. It's not required by zoning. We do think there's a community benefit to the amount of land that we procured that helped us orient the building. Creates a really nice environment. We're doing as much as we can to make it a real publicly accessible place. We'll add the parking, but we're unwilling to make the interior of the building a public cafe because we're not required to. And so we're trying to be thoughtful about what is the project that we can present our best foot forward for longevity. And that's not to say a cafe can't be here. It's just that we want to bring a full building user to Burlingame. And the best way to do that is a blank campus. So that's the position we're in.
Can I just ask a question? And I don't build, one of a few who doesn't build. Is it possible to, not knowing if that would ever be a possibility, like if all of a sudden it's, wow, now we can do that, to pipe it or what the word is, to get it, to have some raw infrastructure there whether hidden or whatever, but it's there so that if, I'm just speaking for myself now because the others may feel differently, but so that you have it, so that it would be there if all of a sudden there would be a real interest and a possibility that, wow, this could make it very special for whoever got the building, that would be feasible to put it in now, like, or when you build it.
We studied the building once upon a time for the ability to put a cafe in that location, which is why we showed it to you last year.
Mhm.
And CEQA studied that too for traffic counts and other things. So luckily the infrastructure from a, entitlement standpoint is there. From the physical standpoint of a piping, most restaurants want gas. We have an all-electric building.
Oh.
We can, do a type 2 hood. We can get away with, the things that you see in the cafe that we're doing at the Landing, which will be a very, generous food offering. And we view this as a sister building, so we're going to try and hopefully curate the two together. But the infrastructure can be built within the space, but it can't then also meet the REACH code if it's going to be more than a building cafe. If it's meant to be a restaurant, then that's a different kind of animal. And in that case, I think the comment is well taken about restaurants on the bayfront being a destination. I totally understand that and have built those. You need a different type of parking situation for openers. You have to have the ability, just like, you have with the Elephant Bar and, Benihana's, you need to be able to arrive and, feel welcome from day one. A garage is difficult to do that with a restaurant unless it's an urban setting, and that going into it. Destination restaurants tend to be 10,000 feet, maybe 8. You can go down to 6, but the back of house of that is very large, and you have a ton of grease traps, and it's just a different animal.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if you'll ever get a mixed use building where there is truly a full restaurant in it. I know that's a desire, and I understand, and I think hotels have that because it's a totally different audience. They have to serve people in the hotel. Life science buildings are just not well meshed with, cafes, generally speaking, because it's the same loading dock that you're receiving your materials for experiments that you receive your food. And so you just have to kind of think as the primary purpose of the building is to create scientific experiments. I'll stop rambling, but that's part of the reasons why a full service restaurant is very difficult in a life science building. It's also part of the reason why this building's a little different than the Landing. The Landing has its own separate dock access for each building. We also have the ability to compartmentalize it because of its scale. This is a smaller building. It's a more challenging opportunity.
I don't know anything about the food truck business, but that was one of your responses earlier. As a tenant, or as a landlord, do you see it charging any sort of rent or cost for a food truck to be on property?
Absolutely, it's going to cost us.
Cost you, but what about this? What about the operator of the food truck?
The food truck will be there as it's a subsidy, basically, that
So they won't have to pay anything.
they won't, I mean, they will receive revenue from their sales. And
No, I'm just trying to think of the draw of getting as Commissioner Camarado said, like what's actually going to make a food truck want to be there?
we'll have to have a contract with them where we will guarantee them a certain amount of revenue.
I see.
And they can either make that, through sales, or we come up with a balance.
And then maybe this could be mitigated along with that with maybe some sort of signage, like come eat over here, there's food trucks here, come see it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're trying to promote is the ability to have variety and also just bring people into the plaza. But a food truck will be there when there are people there. So if we have a lot of people within the building, or if it's on a Sunday, we know it's busy, and we can spread that revenue stream out, maybe, work from home, there's nobody out there on Monday. I mean, I think that flexibility can come out, but it's hard to define that when you have a vacant building and entitlements.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was very informative.
You did help that a lot, quite a bit.
Okay.
I think that the piece with what we're trying to promote here too is then for you on the food truck as a solution, which I think is a viable one. And I definitely understand all of the discussions of the challenges of getting food into these buildings. Then it's having then the commitment to program for that to try and continue to push it and not just blow it off. Because that's what we're feeling like on some of the other projects where we've said, hey, go, go, go. And they say, yes, yes, yes. And then there's no programming, right? You know, if the tenant's not going to program it, so we don't want it to just become a dead plaza. And I don't think you
Sure.
do either. It's just today's our day. We don't have any way to yell at you in 10 years that nobody bothered to program this. So we're trying to be encouraging of how to help the project be successful for both the tenant and the public, and to take advantage of this great public amenity that you are doing. Because there are a lot of positives that you guys are bringing to the table on this, and I like it. I'm just trying to make sure that it gets fully utilized. Thank you.
Understood.
There's a Bentonville in Arkansas. I don't know if anybody's ever been there, but they've done some pretty incredible thing with, it's the Walton's Walmart. It's where Walmart started. And they have this, their whole town is based on bike riding, but they've done some really cool things in some of the commercial properties that they have built, in that they have taken old storage containers, put them on stilts, and have like a little bike shop or have a little coffee shop downstairs. And I appreciate everything that you've done. And I understand that we're kind of at this dilemma of the coffee shop, but it's not about the coffee shop. It's about the entire Bayside. And if we don't ask for what we want now, that's not going to be a vibrant part of our community. And I really want to see that community over on the Bayside be vibrant. And I think that maybe this is more on the staff side of things that we have to start to really consider, because we are getting some amazing projects and some great benefits. But how do we take it to the next step? And I thank you for all your hard work.
I have a question. It's a little tangential, but I'm curious. So I remember the hotel, did you say you were involved with the hotel?
No, I was not.
Okay. I didn't mind that design. I thought it was quite nice. And that would have been a place I didn't, until you've just explained now about the difference between programming a restaurant and a hotel and this, it just didn't click for me until you said it. But just, what is the problem with building hotels now out there? I don't understand. I mean, I'm just curious if you have any thoughts. I mean, they're building a lot of office buildings, but who knows if anyone's going to go in there. But I don't know. Hotels, I'm curious.
It's probably a discussion that I could take up with you outside of this hearing.
Okay.
But it's something we've studied, and
Mm.
and I'm happy to do so
Uh-huh.
outside, but I would just be speculating.
It's okay. I just wondering. A lot of old hotels out there, and if that's what we need to get restaurants, then maybe, well, anyway. Okay. Thank you. Then I have to open it
Yep.
for any of the public out there. Anyone here? No. And anyone in computer land?
No new emails in computer land.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Then I'm going to close.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Close the public hearing. Okay. So now we're going to go to the environmental. And is that what you're saying?
Well,
Or-
depending on
Oh,
the direction of what the commission would like to do, there's certainly still the same options that were there in front of you. If you did want to condition certain things, especially the parking and some others that were mentioned, it sounds as though the cafe is not something that's willing to allow a condition on or might appeal that condition. But depending on what the commission would like to do, if you do want to do the conditioning for additional parking spaces or give direction on that, staff would ask that you just do a short recess so staff can get together, try to make that condition, work with the applicant to make that condition, and then we would come back after that. But please.
You're saying like now and then take a little break? You would take a little break now while you're discussing it? Get it in writing?
Yes, because we want, if we do a condition and the
Huh.
commission would like us to try to negotiate a, for example, and I'm just throwing things out there. They
Mhm.
mentioned doubling the parking from 8
Right.
to 16. We would want a condition written that you could adopt with your motion saying, and the additional condition that there's 16 parking spaces. So
Mhm.
it's harder to do that on the fly. So if that's something that the
It's
commission.
gonna be harder for him to do it on the fly without looking and saying, I can do, how he's gonna partition it up.
It certainly could be. I mean, that's something that if we do a. And it would be in discussion with the applicant. So that's why that short recess, if you
Okay.
come back and.
Pick your number. I think it improves
Mhm.
us regardless.
Mhm.
And I understand your need for a number.
And the improvements on across the street on the Bay Trail, something,
Sure. And again,
okay.
there would definitely be council or commission discussion first, letting
I
us
see.
know what you'd like us to talk about.
Okay.
If that's not something you feel is necessary, we certainly don't need to take a recess. You could do an approval or whatever else you.
Somebody help me here.
I'm less worried about that one.
The parking.
The
You're
parking,
less
well, the
worried-
parking's important because if we don't get a number in there, it doesn't become a condition.
Correct.
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Audrey.
Can you speak into your mics,
Sorry
please?
about that.
Sorry. Um, So I guess take your recess and discuss the number on the parking spot.
Is that all we're asking for?
That's the question.
I'm sorry, but didn't the applicant say that he wanted to study the number of spaces that could be provided based on the gates, access gates? So is it hard to fix a number for them right now?
It may be, it would be something that we would coordinate with the applicant to determine in that short recess and then come back to you. It may be that coming back to you, the answer is we are unable to do that at this point, and there needs to be other action taken that we could recommend, but we just don't know unless we wanted to open the public hearing again and then the applicant could do it, but
Why don't you just take your time that you need and let's just
Well,
do that?
Could we do it as an FYI?
Yeah.
I would not recommend doing anything as an FYI when there's CEQA attached to it.
Okay.
Because that
Okay.
that
Okay.
create major issues.
So what do you?
And can we condition the a program for the food trucks?
Yeah.
Certainly something we could discuss about some sort of a condition and come back to you in a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay, somebody make a motion then.
You don't need to make a motion.
Oh, I don't?
You could just
Sorry?
put us in recess for 10 minutes.
Do you have a problem with that, everybody here? Okay, then we would like to recess for 10 minutes. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Or whatever you need. It's for that little break. So it looks like I am going to be looking for.
Yeah, during the break, there were some or some proposed conditions that we'll have the commission take a look at. If you'd like to include those in any motion you have, if you do choose to move forward with the project tonight or an approval, you are welcome to put one or both or none of these conditions along with your motion.
All right, great. Then I am looking for a colleague to first make, if you feel so inclined, to make a motion for the mitigated, to accept the, right, the
Adopt the
adopt
thus
the
study mitigated negative declaration.
the initial study mitigated negative declaration.
Well, you just did.
I just did. Okay, that would,
Second your motion?
all right. Then it was,
So roll call, Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
and Chair Pfaff.
aye. So then next, this is called how is this thing called? Commercial design review
The entitlements resolution for you can just read the title, block at the top of the resolution, if you have that in your attachments or.
It's commercial design review and special permits for building height and development under tier 3 and a vesting tentative map for a new 8-story research and development building with a 7-story parking structure.
Is that good enough or do I have to repeat that?
Nope, you can make a motion to.
What he said.
Staff.
All right, make a motion to approve and I, with,
Before we include the condition.
Yep.
With the
with
proposed,
the, I feel like we could approve the proposed conditions of at least 20 parking stalls on level 1 in the parking structure, that they be public stalls dedicated for use between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., 7 days a week, and that the applicant shall contribute $100,000 towards improvements on the Old Bayshore Highway frontage near the City of Burlingame Shorebird Sanctuary.
I'll second that.
Okay, then a roll call vote.
roll call, Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmidt,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
and Chair Pfaff.
Aye, and the word conditions is spelled wrong in your typo.
Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Very good. And then
This-
Deal language.
yes, an action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $784, which includes noticing costs. So thank you very much for your patience and my colleagues for their patience and staff. Okay. Thank you.
Next one.
All right, next one.
Still got 3 more.
Oh, 3 more? I have 3 more
Have to
to
do
do?
special permit?
Oh, a special permit? Do I have to do something?
No, I
I
thought
know it's all
that was included.
Okay, what's included?
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Kevin led.
it was a
Read them.
little blurred in
Yeah.
the acoustics, unfortunately, but yes, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. All right. Very good. Thank you for patience for the next item, which is our last item, is design review for 1427, item 10A, 1427 Montero Avenue. Were any commissioners not able to visit project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? No, I don't think so. And I'll let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review, special permit for declining height envelope and variances for building height and right side setback for a 2nd-story addition to an existing single-unit dwelling at 1427 Montero Avenue, zoned R1. The applicant's proposing a 2nd-story addition at the rear of the dwelling. Floor area would increase to 3,268 square feet, or 3,366 square feet is the maximum allowed. The existing dwelling contains 5 bedrooms, and with this application, there's no change to the number of bedrooms. Staff would note that the existing on-site parking is non-conforming since there's only 1 covered space and the zoning code requires 2 covered parking spaces for a 5-bedroom dwelling. However, because there's no change in the number of bedrooms, a parking variance is not required. There's also an uncovered space provided for in the driveway. The existing 2nd floor along the right side of the house currently encroaches into the declining height envelope. Therefore, it is considered non-conforming. The proposed dormer expansion would also encroach into the declining height envelope, and the applicant is therefore requesting a special permit for this encroachment. Staff would note that given the slope of the lot, the point of departure for the declining height envelope measurement is taken much lower. In fact, the finished floor of the house, the point of departure is approximately 11 feet lower than the actual finished floor of the house, and this results from the slope on the lot. In addition, a variance for the right side setback for the 2nd floor is also required. There's 2-foot 9-inch right side setback, where 4 feet is the minimum required. The subject property is an upsloping lot, approximately 17 feet from the front to the rear of the property line, and this does affect the measurement for the overall height of the building. A variance for building height is required for the proposed 2nd floor addition, which would have an overall height measured from average top of curb at 38 feet 2 inches to the dormer, where 30 feet is the maximum allowed. In this case, again, we have a nonconformity that staff would note because of the slope of this lot. The existing dwelling is considered nonconforming with a height of 42 feet above the average top of curb to the existing roof ridge. This application before you this evening is the design review study item, request for design review for second-story addition, special permit for declining height envelope along the right side, special variance for building height for the second floor addition, as well as a variance for the right side setback for the second floor. Staff has provided for your reference the required findings for design review, as well as the findings for special permit and for a variance. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Also, I would like to note that we did receive an email earlier today. It was sent to all the commissioners directly. We also left a copy up at your desk this evening. And let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Yes, I actually don't understand I don't understand the variance request on the side. Is it already out of compliance? Why is there a variance needed? I don't understand that.
It's correct. The house already is existing non-conforming. The dormer expansion is just, it's not making things worse. It's matching, yes.
Okay, and there's something else I was gonna ask, but I forgot. That's okay, I'll just let it go. So do any of my colleagues have any staff questions? Okay, great. So then, I'm gonna open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Travis Colwell. My wife Alexa is watching on Zoom. Hi, honey. We joined the Burlingame community as a family of 2 in 1998. In the Easton Addition, lived on Hillside Drive 11 years. We moved to this Montero house not quite 15 years ago in 2009. Hope to be there about the same amount of time. At that time, I'd be 83, so might be tired of stairs. But we're excited about our proposal and look forward to discussing it. With me tonight is our architect, Albert Costa, whom may have something to say.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Albert Costa, architect for Costa Brown Architecture. And I'm available for questions once we get into it.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, but let my colleagues go first. No, nobody else? All right. So, no, Audrey, you go first.
Didn't get my hand up fast enough. Yeah, just a couple of questions about your rear facing windows. Looking at your rear elevation and the location of your second floor, are you able to clear those windows above your sink? Is the plan to have windows right above the vanity in the primary bathroom?
Yes.
Do you have the height clearance there for almost 36-inch counter? Just seems like the sill height might be a little bit low there. Do you know what your sill height is? Sill height is there along
Yes.
those windows?
Yes. It's about approximately 44 inches.
She may not be able to hear you unless you speak directly into the mic. It doesn't always pick up.
Okay.
Did you hear him?
There is clearance for the vanity.
Okay, and then the window will be directly above the vanity, the windows?
Yes.
And then what is that, the open space to remain is kind of a large hallway space, is that being utilized as, wait, I'm sorry, is it no, there's a wall. Yeah, so that kind of hallway area, is that being utilized as a little reading area or a game area, or what is the proposed use there?
So you're referring to at the top of the stairs there on the second floor?
Yes.
Yeah, so we intend that as a reading area. In the current house configuration, there is kind of the equivalent space in the middle of the second floor. And we've used it a great deal as a family, so we'd like to move that back to where the light is better.
I
Back where
see.
the windows are.
Okay. And then for the new bedroom on the upper right-hand corner, just next to this open space. Sorry to ask all these floor plan questions. That with the location of the door where it's proposed, where would a bed go? You're planning it to be maybe a twin bed or a double size bed? Trying to figure out where a bed might go in this bedroom.
Yeah, it's a small bedroom. It'd probably be a child's bedroom.
Mm.
And
Okay.
the bedroom, just for reference, that's one closer to the street. That's had our daughter's single bed in it for all this time, and it's the right size. So we do anticipate a child's bed. It would probably go in the corner, or
Okay.
along the right-hand wall or along the rear wall.
Okay, along that longer wall where the
Be like a twin
closets,
bed.
maybe.
Right. But very likely a twin bed.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go. So I had similar questions about the windows. So is the intent, I'm looking at the A201.2 on the new dormer shed roof. Is the intent to run your windows really high up to the, they seem very high as far as where they meet the roof? Like how far? I can't tell quite on here because of the angle, but about how far from what? Inches? Okay, 7.6 inches. My colleague just. 7'6". But I guess I'm saying the top of the window to the, what do you call this? Where the roof and the.
6-8 inches.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Plate height.
Yes.
Plate height is the word. Yeah. Is that at 6 to 7 inches, sort of? Is that what you're talking about?
We see
From the very top molding, the molding of I guess they have moldings, to the plate height.
Yes, it's approximately a 4-foot high window,
Hmm.
7'6" at the plate height.
Okay, and so it looks as if you have, you've got, so it's sort of the ones in the middle are narrower, and then you've got sets on the side which are wider. I see your challenge because I fiddled with this. I also have this is a beautiful house.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yes, thank you.
But I see a challenge trying to figure out, does it look good from the inside? Does it look good from the outside? How's it lining up? And in this case, it's not lining up from the inside and it's not lining up from the out. I mean, the way I'm seeing is it's not lining up from the inside with the wall space. When you come up your stairs, it's not centered. Your double windows are not centered in that little area you're calling your reading area, and they're not centered in your bedroom, and they're not centered in the bathroom. It's not necessarily your fault. I'm just saying, I was trying to figure out a resolution for how to make the windows. I don't know, that you got the whole set of windows running very far over into the corner of your dormer on the right. And I don't know what, I was trying to figure out myself how to make it all work, that it looks even from the outside and even from the inside, and you kind of have to fudge a little bit, but is the window, the one that exists on the first floor, is that the same dimension as the window above it? Where you decided this is the one on the bottom, the far on your ground floor by your porch area, that window that exists already, is it the same as the one above it in height, in its dimensions?
let me answer the first observation, if I may. So the hallway up there is its original shape, and it's a little kludgy. So I think that's a word we can use.
Yeah.
In public. The window at the end of the hall, that is at the top of the stairs, my intention, or our intention, is that it centers on the stairwell, at least the narrow part of the hallway where the stairwell is the narrower part. It broadens out on the left side, and that's an existing shape. It's about a foot wider, which actually gives room for a little bit of reading furniture.
Okay.
So it's the view down the hall centers in that way, which is the current configuration. So I know that logic is a little bit elusive. And if I look at the window placement for the ensuite bath back there,
Mhm.
that is centered on that wall where the vanities are. And the window in that upper right-hand bedroom is centered on the wall for that bedroom. So in the plan view there on A2002.
Okay.
So that's the
So,
logic anyway.
so you used more of the interior, and so the outside, it looks uneven on the
A little irregular
Yeah, it
on the
does, yeah. And then I was wondering what your thought was on the side window, which is that kind of 70s, I'm going to say that because I'm that age, the 70s triangular window and the dormer on the side, what your thought was, as well as the window, which is over your bathroom.
Sure, let me find that
I think it's the bathroom, yeah.
plan. Here we go. It's the other side,
Bathtub.
this one. So that's shown on A2-1.4,
Mm-hmm.
that proposed elevation. So that triangular window.
So you just picked it because you liked it, or you wanted light in there, or what was your thought about that?
Yes, natural light.
Okay.
Yes, natural light, and something we've enjoyed a lot in this 100-year-old house is it has its quirks and its irregularities, and having a special element in that small bedroom feels like an opportunity.
Okay. All right, I think those were my main questions. Any other questions? Yeah.
Would you be opposed to any sort of privacy screening at the rear of the lot?
So thinking of like a landscape element. What we have there now isn't shown on the plan, but we actually have a hedge that's about 15 feet high.
Mhm.
So we actually have almost complete privacy from the neighbors behind.
So one of the comments we got from the neighbors was that they can see into your lot and you'll be able to see into theirs. Is that not accurate, or?
Do we know which, who the neighbors are?
Right
We've-
behind you.
Right behind.
1428 Benito.
So the view into theirs and into ours is not unusual, nor intrusive. We can't see their backyard. We can see the back of their house. The kitchen lights go on about 6 in the morning, but they're normal conforming setbacks, normal shape of the property.
You have an easement as well, a 10-foot easement, right?
So I don't find it to be a concerning or unusual condition. Their windows look into our yard,
Mhm.
and it's not been in our 15 years being their neighbors, we've been very neighborly together.
Thank you.
I just had one more question regarding the window on the other side. So the far right on the dormer, the one that is the kind of long and thin rectangular one, which is above the bathtub.
Right.
Yeah, that one.
Yep.
So it also is almost up to the corner, and I'm wondering if you considered something, I don't know, giving it a little more space from the edge, and as well as it's kind of an element that doesn't, like the triangle, it doesn't exist anywhere else. I was wondering if you considered maybe some like dividing into 3s or 4s grids running down this way that kind of matched the style of the house. Simple, like a something like that, maybe. So it doesn't look like an add-on.
No, interesting point. Like, and that would not be hard to accommodate, to
Right.
divide that in some way that
Just
follows the rhythm of those. An attractive feature of the house is these pairs of windows.
Yeah.
Like most of the window sets, if you look around the surround of the house, are in these pairs.
Mhm.
So we could take that same approach here and make it a pair of elements that are
Yeah.
textured like the others.
Yeah, it's kind of easy. I think it's
I like that.
easy thing to do and kind of like pull it back in. So anyway, those were my questions. So, well, wait a sec. Do we have any, there's nobody in the public here, but do we have any public, we did get a public comment letter. Thank you, whoever wrote in. Craig Sabian, Craig Scabian wrote us from behind you.
Right?
Craig, I think it was Craig.
Did you,
It's Scabian.
do I get to ask a question?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Did we get a note from Kate Buccieri?
Yes, we have
Oh.
2 emails
Oh, sorry.
that we can read out loud.
Yes. Okay.
The first says, Dear Planning Commissioners, as next door neighbors to 1427 Montero Avenue, we'd like you to know our support for the proposed remodel plan. We are familiar with the design and support the proposed variances and special permits. The design is beautiful and the neighborhood will be all the better for it. Old houses are the charm of Burlingame, and we appreciate remodels that keep these treasures intact and allow owners to reach their vision on aesthetics and functionality. Just completing our own remodel, we very much appreciate the thoughtful and practical approach to the plans that we submitted in the process. Thanks for your work. Sincerely, Kate and Rob Buccieri. And then there's one more email. Hi, we are the Pahlavan family at 1431 Montero Avenue. Being the 1427 Montero Avenue project proposal, we want to inform you that we support the Kurtwells remodel project. Please do not hesitate to contact us if you have any questions. And this is best regards from Fred Pahlavan. Those are the 2 that we have.
Thank you very much. So then, there's nothing else. I'm going to close the public hearing. So, colleagues, any comments?
I'll go. I like the house. I appreciate that it's being reused. I don't think that this has really any negative impact on the street going forward. From what I can tell, it's really not a height issue because of the way the property works. It's a huge upslope from the front. So I can totally appreciate the decline height and overall height from the curb. Doesn't really actually apply very well. So I don't have any issues with the additional height that they're asking for. And when you really think through the declining height, this really wasn't what it was meant for. So I think that this is an excellent candidate for the variance and for what it's doing and what it's reusing. And I support this project.
I agree. And I could see this moving forward to consent.
I think it's an absolutely beautiful house. I understand, the neighbor in the back maybe not wanting, it's a different look than the small gable that was there, but this is really a very modest proposal and very thoughtful, I think. And, I think a little more work could be done on the windows to kind of make them feel like more unified, but other than that, definitely can see reason for the variance in this case. And the declining height issue, myself. And definitely appreciate very much. Anyone else? Audrey, do you have anything? No?
I'll make a motion to approve the application for variance and special permit as per the staff report and move it to consent.
I'll second.
Hey, roll call, please.
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Schmid,
Aye.
Commissioner Shores,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Vice Chair Lowenthal,
Aye.
and Chair Foff.
Aye. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, so I have to read something, right?
It is not appealable.
Read it?
Nope, not appealable.
Oh, this is not appealable. Someday I'll get that straight. All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, and so that brings us to agenda item 11, commissioners' reports. Are there any commissioners' reports? Oh, I don't think. Oh, didn't I go to something? Did I go to something? I think I went to something, but oh yeah. I went to it was a housing thing again, wasn't it? Is there a housing thing? I listened to something. Sorry, I signed up for something. Oh, no, it was the environmental hazards. It has a better name than that.
Oh, the safety element.
Yes,
Mhm.
I did attend. I did attend that at some point last week. So I did do that. And nothing to report at this point. It was mainly feedback, what we consider hazards in all of our communities up and down the peninsula. So, or actually the county was running it. Directors' reports. Are there any directors' reports?
Just a couple things. So don't forget the joint city council planning commission
yeah.
meeting on Saturday at 9 o'clock. We've put the agenda and the staff memos. We'll also send those as PDFs so you can check out the various hyperlinks that are in there. The three items are Mills Act with historic preservation, the general plan build out assumptions, and then a few kind of a grab bag of multi-unit residential standards that you'll see that have kind of come to the surface. As for the April 1st City Council meeting, the development project at 1200 to 1340 Bayshore Highway, the DIFCO project was approved by the City Council. The entitlement set is, and then the development agreement does need to come back as an ordinance, so that will come back on April 15th for a second reading.
Not to us, to them.
What's that?
Yes.
That doesn't come to us anymore.
Nope.
Okay.
So they did, your recommendations were appreciated. So they took all the recommendations from the planning commission. Probably the most significant change was we alluded to the expansion of the public parking where they're now going to offer a couple hundred spaces at after hours and on weekends. So that I think addresses some of the concerns of the planning commission as well as city council.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was it. And then finally, future agenda items. Item 13. Colleagues, do we have any future agenda items?
I was elected to request a study session to look at zoning along Bayshore for the projects that we've been reviewing a lot lately, and how we might come up with a way to be encouraging projects or uses that would not only be office and life science, but would provide community benefit. And so whether that is zoning of smaller pieces of property that are not already destined for big buildings, or how we better provide incentives to our big building people to want to put in more things that we want to see. We definitely saw the struggle this evening, and that's fine. And he had various reasons, and they are definitely difficult, but we're not acting what we want. So if we don't do something about our zoning, the same argument every time.
Okay.
And typically we ask for a second. Or there is-
Second that.
Got it.
Told you I was elected.
I needed the elector.
How many seconds are there?
All right. Great. Is that, do we have to do a roll call for that? No.
Nope.
Okay. Okay.
Understood.
6-0.
All right, very good.
It-
And,
it- We saw it coming, so
yeah,
not surprised.
okay.
You were listening?
Okay, that sounds good. Well, then with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at, oh my goodness, a longer one, at 10:40. Thank you.